It's time for another episode of Summoning Insight, and it wouldn't be the start of an episode if Thorin didn't go on an extended rant about something. So Thorin, let's start it off.
I can deliver on cue, mate. So we didn't prepare this, but it's okay.
Oh God, I don't even know what he's going to say.
There's always things that annoy me, Monty. So, yeah, if people have ever seen the classic show Seinfeld, right? If people know the premise of that holiday that George's father invented, Festivus, yes. Right? One of the things about Festivus was, yeah, you just tell everyone you love how they've disappointed and let you down that year. So here's the thing, right? I'm gonna, in a second, this is the rant before the rant, mate. Like, I'm gonna do a rant about how bad...
Pre-ranting.
This is gonna be about how bad the finals were and about how pathetic the, like, desperate need that it was an amazing game was. But here's how I'm gonna preface it, because I already know what's coming. People are gonna say... Because they're not even original, Monty. There's about 5 jokes that just circulate in the brains of the NPCs that live in this world. It goes like this. Oh, wow, it's like 2 old men yelling at clouds. Don't you think it's just like the Muppets, like those old characters, which, by the way, they don't even know the reference for it. They've just seen a picture of that once.
Also, so that segment in the Muppets was legitimately the best segment.
That's funny, yeah, of course. And so here's the thing. What they're essentially saying with that whole angle is like, oh, would you just get out? You're stuck in the past. Like, you just can't get with the times. Right, let me just give you a little reality check there, homeboy. So what you're telling me, kids who've watched League of Legends for 2, 3 years, maybe to your idea, a distant memory is a video you once saw of like a Samsung White game that you never watched them. You just remember that vaguely, or you've read enough Reddit threads that go, Faker in Season 3. You never watched Faker in Season 3, but you remember it. You saw the Z versus Z outplay. So what you're telling me...
These kids were like 12 when that happened.
Exactly. Mate, I completed GoldenEye before you were born. Like, you have to understand that. Before your mother had sex, I finished GoldenEye. So shut the fuck up, everyone. So when they're watching... Listen, I know exactly. That was a fucking odd job that she was getting into there. So... When I was doing, when you say that we're the boomers and that we're stuck in the past, like, let me just be clear. That's the most whack angle ever because of who your generation is. Your generation is the one where, of course, LeBron has to be the GOAT because you're watching him now. Of course, Tom Brady's the GOAT. You're watching him now. Everyone's the GOAT. Is Messi the GOAT? Of course he is. So what you're telling me, young bucks, is that coincidentally, whatever insert current year that you are around is always the best because it's when you're around. And surprisingly, are you ready for the convenience? The era that you weren't quite around for, that can't be the best. Well, you know what? I agree with your central premise. One of the people in this dynamic is stuck in a certain frame of time and can't actually apply and integrate into historical context and accurately judge which times were better and what was good, which leads into this match here. Because you know what? I actually understand in a way that these idiots don't seem to get. It isn't that I don't understand that when you want to watch a match, you're willing to let, you know, some perfection go. It isn't that I think a Messi match is bad. If anything, I'm one of the people from day one who was arguing with the people who loved Korean esports. Like, I still see some value in the Chinese teams. I was a big fan of OMG, for example, a very messy team. But the whole thing is, they were messy. That's why I loved that angle that Yamato kind of came with, where his whole like model of like, it's like activity and then precision. So you can be super active and it can be messy, but the precision doesn't have to be as high if you're super active because that's like a different quality. I thought it was a very interesting way to make it. Right?
I agree.
So when he brought that out, it ain't that can't be the case. And here's the thing, coming from Counter-Strike, I even totally get that a game doesn't actually have to be a classic that you're enjoying. And that after the game, you go, I was a bit hyped because there was some fun moments and it was uncertain and the guy did a crazy move. But I actually think, this is what I'm going to tie into that. I actually think that's why I didn't find this game to be very entertaining. Because I'm spoiled. I don't wait all year for one tournament that's supposed to, I'm finally allowed to go, this finally counts. Because remember, even if you watched LCK, you had to keep gaslighting yourself, but maybe LPL's better, so I can't actually enjoy this because maybe I'm an idiot now just enjoying Canadian Football League when the NFL exists. So what happens is, because I come from Counter-Strike, well, every Counter-Strike tournament, at least when we had LANs, has so many games in it, and all the best teams playing all the time, that every single month, every 2 weeks, I can get at least one game that's super hype, it's exciting, but it's not a classic. It's like it was just a good game, you know. It had excitement, it had thrills, it had spills. You didn't know who was going to win. And at the end, you go, well, you know what? Even though they entertain me for an hour or two, I'm not going to like take this. It's not going to be some model of the game, and I'm not going to analyze it like everyone will. So this is my problem is, my analogy really is, it's like the one that I think it was in one of those Eddie Murphy stand-ups from the 80s, where he just said, if you were starving hungry and someone just threw you a bag of crackers, you'd be like, God damn, what were those saltines? Like, they're delicious. Like, because the premise is you were starving. Like, at that point, anything's going to be sick. And by the way, I've even done that. Like, if you've ever been a poor student and you have nothing and you find, like, you know, behind a bunch of cans, you find some, like, basic ramen with some spicy stuff. You're like, oh, my God. Like, you're like, savoring that shit like it's, like, caviar or something. Like, so you get our premise. Like,
but that's 2020, man.
Yeah, it is in a way.
So here's the thing. Everybody wanted it to be cool, and everybody wanted it to be an epic series because you come out and you see that fucking, honestly, huge epic stage. I mean, it was really baller.
Oh, it's the best stage setup in a way that we've had. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
the dynamic aspect, the water. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, the stage was sick. And you see that and you hear the crowd cheering and you're like, shit, my brain is just excited because I haven't even heard a crowd cheering at an esports event in forever. And so, like, you want it to be really good because it seems so special. And, you know, to Riot's credit, it was special. It was fucking awesome that they managed to pull this off on LAN. As somebody who is trying to do a LAN event and then failed to do a LAN event.
Oh, it's miraculous they did it, isn't it? Yeah.
I will tell you that it is neither easy nor cheap to accomplish that, especially in these times. Now, they had the help of the Chinese government, which obviously is hugely beneficial when you want to run something like this because a lot of it depends on government regulations. But I think that they do deserve credit for that. And I understand that people were mega hyped for this as a result of that happening. But I think, and we'll get into this with Bwipo when we get him on, objectively, the games in the finals were pretty not good. And it was, Dom won like almost through several games. Like they were throwing and still winning. Here's
the thing, Monty. This is the one thing I've become a specialist at because I'm not going to go into it again, from a different perspective than other people. And so I had to sort of learn, how do you people see the game? And how does that, why is it different? Why are there like disconnects for me? Or why do they not get what I get sometimes? So one of the reasons why, because I like to track like the narratives, who's saying what, right? Here's the problem. You could just tell that everyone was so right, because people are sick of finals being 3-0s and shit finals, and League of Legends famously have had a lot of bad finals. Because they're bored of that, they all came in knowing, of course, Damwon's going to win this series. But that's boring, isn't it? They're just going to win. Like, what, you mean the best match was the semi, or was the Fnatic top match? You know, that's not what people want for the final. And simultaneous to believing it's going to be boring, they wanted it to be like, everyone knows everyone gets drawn into the fucking underdog story. Oh, but if they could do that to JDG and Top, maybe Sonning could make it. So what happened was when Damwon was playing the worst League of Legends I've seen since spring, and Sonning wasn't playing even as good as they did elsewhere, but they were just fighting back against an opponent that wasn't doing that well. Just the fact it kept getting close made people like, this must be a good game, because if that one is the best and they're playing, what they started doing that thing they always do, Monty, where essentially they question your very definitions of reality. As in, the classic example is this. You know, when people used to say, you used to get this all the time, mate, but Monty, when two teams have a complete back and forwards brawl match with all skirmishes and no one knows who's going to win and they're wildly going in Korea, you say that is high-level League of Legends. But when you were watching CLG versus Gravity, you said that was a clown fiesta. It's like, that both statements can be true. Like, what do you not get about that? Both statements can absolutely be true. There's not even anything about that. That's actually one of the most inane, like, actual like observations ever, unless you can add the context, isn't it?
So here's the analogy that you're making. Now, you can have two different fights. One fight can be a totally even match between two masters of the blade as they go at it, and their swords are all clanging off of each other, and it's incredibly close and it's incredibly tense, and it could go on for a long time if nobody has an advantage. You can also get two cavemen or Neanderthals with clubs swinging wildly around, and it can be equally close. But one of these things has had people practicing for years and at the pinnacle of their craft, and the other one is Neanderthals with sticks, okay? So just because something is even doesn't mean that it's of a similar quality, and it's on you, the viewer, to be able to educate yourselves, to understand the difference between two samurais and two Neanderthals.
And then the one thing I would say is this, right? Because I was doing a pretty good job poo-pooing the whole thing, raining on parades like only I can, which, by the way, already invokes some of the dumbest angles ever. Like, you know, when people go, shh, let people enjoy things. So let's just break that down. shush on your Twitter timeline, not tweeting at me who you don't follow, giving your opinion so that I can give my opinion on your Twitter timeline. Like, that is... Can I enjoy not enjoying it? Is it all right, guys? Not only that, there's one last angle that I've got to say. The moment I knew that it's like people had fully like hit the like laughing gas angle where you just exit reality, like, and they were just like they were going off into the moment I knew the hype had really kicked in properly was when I saw, I think it was Fionn. It was my boy Fionn who, listen, I've learned to just appreciate Fionn where he's strong and not be incredibly disappointed where he's not strong. And he just said, I believe it was him who just said, I think it was after game 1, he just goes, best finals ever, right? Do you remember season 6, Fionn, when Samsung and SKT had an epic slogfest 5-game series with like super late game macro, like compile, like adaptations, like no one even thought Samsung had a chance at like that. You just watched a game that was better than that because you saw like a close match. Like, brother, take it down a level. Take it down. Listen, it's all over now, so we can all just understand. We can reflect on what happened and understand. We all got caught in the moment. I've gotten caught in the moment before. I will say this. I've never been caught in the moment of, you know, when Reddit, even up until a few years ago, was like, they were talking about that shit CLG TSM PAX game where the Super Minions destroy the Nexus and Neon Tonso's in it. They talk about that game like fucking... The
MLG game where he was the lead.
Talking about the 5 touchdowns at Podunk High School. You know that famous joke? Like, dude, they talk about that like it was like the greatest game of all time. It's like, it was like an exciting best of one. That was it, you know. It wasn't even the finals. It was just like a regular season game as well. Like, give me a break, guys.
I think that one was at MLG, so it did have like some crowd element associated with it, which I think why people were really hyped up.
Like even the championship, right? It was just a regular season game.
Yeah. It was just normal regular season stuff. I don't know. I think
I just enjoy it now.
So by the way,
I'm just enjoying it now.
So some people, to go on this conversation, some people ask why I use the term nephews on Twitter, and that's exactly to describe the kind of people that Thorin is describing, who are these young people who have no context. And it's not that you can't have context as a young person. Certainly, you could have gone back and watched the old games or tried to understand where things were historically, because generally, guys, casters, if you watch the pregame of old VODs, will do a pretty good job of setting up what the stakes are, who the favorites are, who the star players, what their seasons were like. Pre-games are very helpful if you're going back to old content. And so if you do that, then you can be educated, or you can say, oh, okay, I remember this. But honestly, like, the nephew takes are absolutely insane. Especially, you know, what's funny is the League of Legends subreddit didn't used to be this way, but the LoL subreddit is just like jammed with nephews now. It's just like the most peak nephew takes. And this is a term that our NBA and some of the sports Reddit use, because a lot of those Reddits are older. And so when somebody when somebody rolls up with one of those takes, everybody's just like, shut the fuck up, nephew, which I wish would happen on League of Legends. So if you're a Redditor, go clean up our LoL by calling people nephews, please.
Here's the analogy. I've purposely picked this because it's very topical, right? This would be like if you're a young guy and you've watched a lot of movies at the cinema the last 10 years, right? And so you roll up and you think, you know what? I'm going to give a bold take. And you go, I think Daniel Craig was the best James Bond. It's like, listen, I understand you liked it, Daniel Craig. I understand maybe you even like the different direction, but you are almost, you can't really go, it's a subjective opinion, but you are almost objectively wrong. Like, I could scientifically show you that Sean Connery was clearly like a million times better, but you haven't watched the movies, have you? So that's the point we're making.
You wouldn't, but here's the other thing. You wouldn't be entirely wrong, right? There might be an argument. You could say Daniel Craig is the second best Bond, and I'd believe you on that one. I could say that's, I could say that's an argument, but best, yeah, no way.
Because the reason I know that this is a big problem, like in sports, like you say, is because, like, basically, in the same way as they deal with casters, because they do this with casters all the time as well. You know, everyone who came up in the last 2 years, no matter what current year it is, they always push for the new hype to be the best. So, for example, they'll be like, Captain Flowers is actually the best in League of Legends. Let me know when he actually was able to go to a massive LAN, hold his shit together, and not, like, instantly get ill and just be fucking wrecked out the event. Like, he hasn't done a fucking Worlds all the way. What are you talking about? Like, he's on his way. He's done it. He's shown great promise. When you look where they got him from, they scouted him well. He's improved. Like, he's built a brand. This is all great stuff. Here's the thing. It's not that I need pick anyone, you, someone in Artos, some classic caster to be the best. It's that I actually am considering everyone, and I happen to believe that. They start the opposite and they go, but I want this guy to be this. I learned this in League and all my esports games. It's something I've changed over the last few years. If I actually, like, I'll give you an example. My favorite player in League of Legends was Flame, but I don't say he was the best top laner anymore because he was close, but like, I don't need him to be. Like, it's everything about his career is still the same. I can still enjoy it the same, but I can also just go, it's only a fucking sentence out my mouth. I'll just say the Shy is or Smeb was. There you go. How about that? It doesn't actually change anything. And you know what? I realized I don't need to live vicariously through what he did in a video game. So yeah, we'll wind this back in. What I would say is this, is like, just don't go too crazy, because I've seen this in sports in a way that does get disappointing. Because one thing you don't want to do if you do that is you don't want to alienate the people who did have the history, because then you'll never get access to it, and it'll just be people catering to your like fast food MTV edit world, right? Because I saw this in the NBA. In the NBA, right, one of the most legendary commentators and analysts, he used to be a coach, is Hugh Big Brown. He's a really old school guy, and basically, I used to, when I started watching basketball, like the 90s, the 2000s, if you ever read comments, people were like, this guy is really shrewd, like he knows the game. If you go watch YouTube videos, just Google, like he breaks down, like, because it's like me, he's watched every game. So he could just tell you, like, well, this is how I would break down small forwards. In this era, you know, the lane was only 8 foot large and the defenses were like this. So the way he played was dominant in this way. But then this other player, he could give you the context, right? And you go, fucking hell, this is like Yoda for basketball. Fans, no joke, were just like, he's just some fucking garbage boomer who knows nothing. It's like, listen, that can't be the take, please. That can't be the... Well, there's no one else like that, is there? You would be like, Yoda, it's just some old bloody guy on Megabytes. Can't even
to be fair, that was Luke's reaction when he met Yoda was, who is this fucking boomer, basically.
Exactly. So all we're asking you guys is please just make the jump from the first half of Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi. If you can make it to the end of Return of the Jedi, that's all I ask of you.
The other thing that I think is really true and very important in nephew opinion control is having casters who can, or people who are storytellers around the game, who can provide context. But you know what, guys? We don't have very many of those, at least in English, because hardly anyone has been there the whole time, and the people who have been there the whole time are overwhelmingly from, you guessed it, the worst region, NA. So they don't have an expertise about telling the stories about the top teams and the top players, right? We don't have anybody on the English LCK broadcast who has been there broadcasting since day one. Now, Brendan, Valdez, and LS have been in Korea that whole time, so that certainly helps. But they haven't been paying as close attention to those specific esports stories. We have, Freak and Kobe, who have been there, but Jat's gone now on the NA broadcast. In China, we have literally nobody. And then in Europe, we have Quickshot.
Froscorin was also around the game a long time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Since this is another topical time, so people are going to think from the last episode, you're probably going to use this moment while she's down to kick it. It's like, first of all, I'll kick anyone with it up or down. I'll do like a jump off the top rope flip, and they'll be on top of the ladder trying to get the belt, and I'll still kick them. So don't worry about that. No, I'll actually use this one moment to make a point. That's one of the reasons I actually don't want people to push her out of the game. Because I'll tell you what, she did a great example of one of these takes where, because I understand that you didn't like the semi, watch the last episode, I didn't like her casting in the semi. Also, sometimes, like on some of these games at Worlds, I thought she kind of like, it was hit and miss as to where she was going with the angles. But in her region, she's been very good in LEC. And more importantly than that, she brought up a point exactly like what we're talking about, right in that wheelhouse, where she said before the semis that Jackie Love hasn't proven himself to be at the UZI level yet. Now, to her nephew, well, how can that be, though? He's won Worlds. UZI never won Worlds. You don't get anything about this sport whatsoever. Because by your logic, guys, you think that, like, Patrick Mahomes is already better than Dan Marino because he's won the championship. Like, no, he isn't there yet. The point is, Dan Marino had a body of work. Her point was totally valid. It was about the fact, it was actually about what I love to talk about. You know, how do you model teams? Who was doing what role? What meta did you win in? Like, that's an example of why we need people like that. And not only people who have the knowledge, but they're willing to give a bold take. Because I love it when those bold takes, like, I don't have to agree with them. They just have to be coherent. You know, as long as it fits their philosophy and it follows how they viewed the game, it's interesting, right? Maybe you haven't thought of that angle before if you think he's just a world champion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's important to remember, too, about that comparison in particular, was that basically Uzi was the engine that powered his teams to world finals, right? When everyone else sucked. Meanwhile, Jackie Loves was just getting in the trunk of the car that was driven by the Shy and Rookie. So pretty different in terms of carryability there. But let's take a break, guys, very quickly. We'll get Bwipo on the show, have a nice little conversation about, I'm very curious to hear about Fnatic's turnaround in the playoffs and into Worlds and what that experience was like. So we'll get him on and dive into a lot of that backstory when we come back in just a second. We are back, now joined by Bwipo after our ranting. He's going to tell us how much he loves KDA and K-pop and the very bizarre opening that started the World Finals. How was it watching it back from your home?
I actually didn't catch the whole opening ceremony. But,
you didn't miss anything. It's fine.
Yeah, I got to enjoy some of the screenshots at least. So yeah, I mean, it was surprising. It was surprising to say the least, especially because Evelyn was actually done well from what I could tell. So it was like it was like 4 out of 5 of the girls were like, I don't know what happened there, but you know, it is what it is. I think ultimately I still commend them for giving it a shot. I think that's like the biggest deal for me.
You see, Bwipo, when I approach esports events, I'm kind of an esports fan, you see. And so what I wanted to see out of the 10 years of the League of Legends World Championship was maybe some sort of cool montage of like all the moments and see all the winners and maybe see like, wow, I remember that really important play that was made that won the championship, and hear those old calls and, you know, see Faker in his 3 titles getting older every year. Maybe I would like do something with the history of the sport. Maybe I wouldn't show some like cartoon fox lady dancing around on stage. I don't know. Maybe no LARPing sword fights. I'm not an expert in esports production or storytelling, but maybe I would make different decisions that showed maybe the history of my sport.
Right. I think they tried to do that with playing all the world songs and like mimicking the other ceremonies from the past. I think they did that, but did I miss that? Wasn't that what was happening? Because I swear they played like
but you see, the thing about sports, Bwipo, is that what's important is showing the players and telling the players' stories.
Right.
You know, I appreciate. And truly, I don't mean this sarcastically. I do appreciate all of the cool stuff. I may not like all the songs they put out, but I do think it's objectively cool that Riot puts out new music for every world championship, and it's something that people can get excited over. I may not like that music, but I do appreciate the effort. Now, that said, I don't really want the history of the music. I kind of want the history of the world championships. That would be what I would want personally. So I guess I was a bit bummed. And not to say you can't have all that other stuff too. I just wish we had a really solid moment of celebrating esports history or showing it before the final started. So that was kind of a bummer to me.
I mean, especially because they had the whole I know it kind of went under the radar, but I vaguely remember something about MasterCard sponsoring like 10 like the plays of the
that was cool, by the way.
Oh yes, okay.
That would have been a perfect opportunity to present, like to use those clips and whatever was selected there in order to show off what was happening. Because again, it went under the radar. I don't think anyone actually like really looked at it. I didn't either. I did not get baited to click on it. But ultimately, it was a good idea.
I liked it, and I did watch some of them. When I first, this is actually a funny story. If you guys saw this on my Twitter, so I clicked on one of them, and it was called MasterCard Clicks of the Decade. But the way they did the font in the Twitter thumbnail, the L and the I were really close together, so it just looked like MasterCard Cucks of the Decade.
I remember that tweet.
I
actually remember that tweet.
Now, speaking of features I'd like to see, I could probably do some of the script working on that one, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'll have to say, by the way,
I'll
be the dissenting voice, as usual. It's basically what I was born to do, to be an iconoclast, man out of time. I'll just say I don't appreciate any of the songs. I would turn them all off and literally just listen to the sound of silence. No, not that great Simon and Garfunkel song, just the sound of silence, and experience Zen rather than experience any of this manufactured fake K-pop, not even real K-pop, fake K-pop. I mean, the joke is all K-pop is manufactured fake, but anyway, that's by the by.
Even more fake K-pop.
But when I hear people who are hardcore fans of esports going like, "Oh, but the songs," it's like, what is this? Like fucking Disney princesses? What are you talking about? What songs? Like, you have to realize. I'll tell someone an anecdote that I once told on a show because I know Monty. Listen. He doesn't mind me telling some of these stories. I think it was on like Narrative Wake or something. Maybe just listen local, right? When I was in Korea, one of the things Monty thought was like, because one of the problems with having a load of nerds who all live in one city is you could meet up all the time, but you don't. You just stay at home playing video games, looking at TV and stuff, you know, and you just don't ever meet up, even though you could just like meet up in this metropolis, have an awesome time. So him and Susie would try and find activities we could do. So one day Monty messaged me, right, and he goes, "Hey, do you want to go see Imagine Dragons tonight?" And I was like, I don't know about that, Monty. And he goes, "We can go backstage." And I was like, nah, no thanks. And that was it. That was just the end of it. Like, because I had no interest in seeing them anyway. And believe it or not, being able to go backstage didn't change the experience.
To be fair, I also think Imagine Dragons is not a very good band. And I think their lyrics are absolutely horrible. You know. But, you know, it was a free show. They were being nice to us. So I figured might as well just drop in. Have a unique experience, even though, you know, wasn't super excited about it.
I mean, from a player perspective, having like a world song to hang on to is something that actually like is still quite special for me, right? Like having Rise being tied to some of my best moments.
Was that season 8?
That was season 8,
right.
yes.
Okay.
And having that song tied to some of the, you know, especially
the video was sick on that.
Right? The video was
sick.
The actual song was good. Sure, the live performance was, you know, there was a lot left to be desired, but ultimately, like, you know, the fact that you're on that stage and that song is like it's what sets you up to play on stage, right? So it does create a very special situation for the player, which is like, which is why I can see why it's still a thing, right? Like, even though I think the focus right now is on the K-pop band and on the band and the people they're bringing in to make the song, which I think is perhaps the problem. I think that if the focus would be more on the players, it would be really awesome, because I think one of the reasons why Rise was such a great success is because ultimately it carried the story of Ambition, right?
Yes.
That was why it was one of the reasons why it was also received as such a great...
You understand this is what's so frustrating about Riot, right? Because you're 100% correct. That was what was so fucking good and memorable about that, was Ambition showing up and Faker as Rise at the end and all of the Easter eggs. Awesome. And it told the story of the World Championship. So you're like, wow, Riot, that was really good. But then they just forget that they learned this. I don't where does it go?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I will say that's one area I can appreciate, actually, is the maybe am I thinking, I know there was one a couple of years before that, the one where it was like all the classic players, so I'd like the odd one on, like, I can't remember what champion he was on.
It was like season 6, I believe. Yeah,
you remember that one? Yeah, I like that one. Was good because exactly of that fact, you didn't have to like the music. It's the idea that you watched the video and it was like, oh, that's what they play, but that's supposed to be Meteos, that's whoever, you know. That was cool angle. That's a good way to actually integrate people who don't care about the song, by the way. Just make the like game and the history part of it. Yeah, I like that angle.
I agree. And it also, like, because you've watched the video and you're playing on stage, you also tie the song to the World Championship, right? Like, for the people in the stage as well, it sets a really good tone, because you had this awesome story about Ambition going all the way to the finals. You had this like 1-minute sequence where he's like fighting Faker, and then, you know, that's what you remember when you're listening to the song live, right? So when you're in that live performance or watching the World Championship, either or, like, that's what you're thinking of, right? Because at the very end of the song, it's all about the final, and then you realize, well, we're watching a final. Well, that's great.
Wait a minute, Bwipo, like, you're pretty honest guy. Just be straight with me here, bro. Have you, in dark times in your career, when all the Fnatic fans are flaming you, it's going to shit, is that your Rocky music, The Eye of the Tiger? You just put that on, you're there, you're on, it sings in it again, Licorice is there, you doesn't have any clue how victory even works, you go, I'm back, baby. Is that what's your music to get going? You've done that.
I mean, I've done that, but actually not in the dark times. I've done it like to gain more confidence, actually.
Right,
like,
okay.
Not in the dark times, but I'm in the dark times. I feel like in my dark times, first of all, community backlash doesn't really bother me. It's something that I've grown a thick skin for, because ultimately I adhere to a simple purpose that I believe you can share too. Is it the idea of, if someone disagrees with my take or the way I play the game, then they're going to have to actually prove to me that they have the capability of doing that, right? I'm not going to listen to someone complain about how many deaths I have if they don't even understand why or how I got in that situation in the first place, right? Getting it from my teammates, from my coaching staff, from everybody around me, and in amounts where it would be it would be too much perhaps, that would get into, like, that would start making me worry about my performance. But, you know, having a bad split or something like that, and having most of the complaints come from the outside, doesn't really matter if the inside doesn't think that that's a problem, right? If I don't think it's a problem in the idea of what I'm doing is the reason why things are going wrong, there are other factors that need to be considered. And my coaching staff, after I discuss with them, like, hey, this is the public view, what do you think, right? if both sides.
I get you, yeah.
But the thing is you actually kind of have to do this as a pro player because
you have to do it. Content creators should do this as well, but they don't. Sadly, mate. They read all the comments and get hurt. Yeah.
The thing is you have to do this as a pro player. You have to actually go to the people in your organization and be like, this is the public view. This is my view. What do you think? Right? Like, what does the organization think? What do the staff members think? Like, is my coaching staff happy? And I think that this is the main way I battle the negative feedback, right? Like I just this year, for example, I went to Mithy. I'm like, look, this is what I'm doing. This is what people are saying this is bad. Like, what do you think, right? Like, do you think I should be changing my performance? Do you think I should be changing my champion pool? Like, you know, if people bring up issues like my champion pool isn't good enough, right?
Sure.
Then the only thing I can really do is use that criticism and actually ask the question to someone that would know whether or not my champion pool is good enough or not. And this can potentially light up an issue that they have, but they haven't been able to get to present to me, right? Like, I don't know, maybe your coach struggles with telling you your champion pool sucks. Humans are humans, right? And no coach is perfect. And ultimately, I think that community feedback can be used in a positive way, which is why I don't think it's all that negative. Like, sure, people are really bad at giving it, but the skill is in filtering that in order that you can use it, right? That's something you have to learn for yourself. I'm sure you have that too. I'm sure Monte has had his times as a caster, you as an interviewer, you as whatever else you are at this point. You're a man of many talents, but ultimately when you get that negative feedback, it's on you to filter and actually see, like, is there some relevance in what they're saying? Because there can be, and respecting that the possibility is there, that the feedback is useful, is all I really do, right? I just ask him, maybe he's right. All right, so let's take a double take. Let's have a look. All right, he's wrong. Well, fair enough.
The reason I laugh, though, I actually think that was a great point, by the way. That should be a clip on its own. I thought you said, this is the problem with Bwipo, though, Monty, is every time he comes on shows, he does an amazing job addressing criticism, but not dismissing it like that. He'll try and take like the point, like, okay, maybe I did make a mistake in this point of the game, or we could have played differently. And he'll do all this amazing, eloquent, like, it's actually like quite enlightened perspective, you know, for quite a young player. But then here's the problem. So I get hyped. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start supporting Bwipo. I'm not going to let these fans just talk shit on him all the time. You know what? You Fnatic fans don't deserve him. He's better than you expect. And then I load up the game, though, right? And in the game, I become like I will dominate. Watching, he's fucking Griffin. Holy shit! What is he doing? Why is he? So listen, that's the problem. It's the duality of man, Bwipo. That's the problem.
It is true. It is true. Like,
and also, like, you have to understand, these people are not interested in giving you legitimate criticism. Like, it's not their fucking life, dude. This is like what they do to blow off steam. You know, we all have that one sport or whatever. I'm sure you watch sports where you're like, what the fuck is that guy doing? And like throwing shit at the TV. Like, I intentionally save like some sports or esports that I just refuse to learn anything about just because I want that release. Because it's like, I'm like, I want to be an ignorant pleb when I watch this. You know what I mean?
That's why I've got the new take for it. I just call them barbershop takes because famously, especially in like urban communities, what they do is they just go in the barbershop, and the idea is, of course, no one's an expert about the sport. Like, you know, the guy's the fucking barber, and then there's the guy the butcher, and then there's your cousin or whatever. But that's the point. You're just talking shit, aren't you? It's like, oh, what did your team lose? Oh, the quarterback should be fired. Oh, they should get this guy. And the whole point is, you almost revel in how ignorant you are, don't you? You're just talking nonsense.
Exactly.
Like, it's fun. It's fun.
Exactly. I'm telling you, I literally do that. Like, I am a fucking professional analyst in a game, and I'm telling you, I intentionally engage in this behavior. Like, now, first off, I don't do what the fans do, which is like take my dumbass opinions to Reddit or social media.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
that's a start. That would be a start, right? Like, again, like backseat gaming in the backseat, I don't mind. You know,
or like
leave it in the seat, it's all right.
And I think that's what's good about like the sports Reddits is most of them are just memes and like hilarious takes about shit or just like witty comments, and then they just like downvote all the idiots, which because everybody's just there for the same purpose, which is just basically to have a laugh. It doesn't happen in the esports subreddit because everybody is also a player of these games, so they all think they're an expert. Whereas, like,
sure,
you know, most people aren't out there playing, you know, 10 games of football a week like they are in League of Legends. Right?
Dude, you know my favorites ever. I'll just do the one mini rant because it's not even that it's like nonsense, but it's just funny. Because I always totally admit, because it obviously doesn't affect me. I don't care. I always say I've never even been vaguely high ranked in League. I think the most I might have ever been is like plat for like till I just got demoted instantly, you know. I've never made any attempt. I just play Pike every single time, no matter what the matchup is, and just go fuck. this is hard. You know, it's like, I think that's fun. But here's what I have always
like his teammate Hillsang, it's fine.
Yeah, here's the problem. Well, the irony is, I actually probably ruin 9 out of 10 soloQ games because I watch Hillsang. Like, I start trying to do those split pushing games when he's losing and stuff. Like, I can totally imagine. Like, every time I think I'm having fun, I'm sure there are 9 people in the server. This is a nightmare. Why is he doing this? So anyway, here's the point I was going to make, though, is it's the people who are like, Thorin obviously doesn't even know anything about the game. Take a breath. They then give their thoughts, but they're like a fucking plat player, Monty, and they think stupidly that the delta between me and them is bigger rather than the delta between them and Bwipo. Like, they think, like, well, I'm plat. That's like, you know, it's like that far away. Or it's down here. It's like, brother, it's the other way around. I said this when that Malice guy tried going off on Amazing. I was like, listen, Malice, you might be hot shit in EU Challenger West, mate, but that isn't actually professional League of Legends. You've never played professional League of Legends. Like, you don't know actually what it's even like to sit on an LEC stage. You don't even know what the feeling is like. So when you then judge, like, Kadril was the best example. Like, you look at him and go, he's just garbage. It's like, mate, he's levels above where you are now. So if you imagine, well, I'm just that far. No, you're this far off. Like, because I always tell people this, like, the difference between having just the basic skills and being a pro, that you've got everything to do yet, mate. It's not, you're not 99% with 1% to go. You're like 10% with 90% to go, mate. Like, that's the point. There's a million, and there's another thing. There is a million people who have soloQ skills. A million. But most of them will never be pros. Come on.
Yeah. I think that's all too true. Well, I'm glad you don't take that feedback too seriously, Bwipo. So the next stage in your evolution is going to be not reading those comments at all, because you got past the point where they affect you. Now you spend 1 second thinking about whether they're accurate, and the next step is to spend 0 seconds thinking about them ever.
I actually disagree. I've always had this. I didn't develop this thick skin. I always had it. Like, the day one I went on stage, or day whatever, it's 3 years now. Like, oof, holy moly. 3 years, right? I'm not a rookie anymore. I still feel like one, honestly. But the point is that's what I mean. Like, I still feel the same way day one as I do today. Now, obviously, I've gathered a lot of experience. I'm not the same player. I've won. I've lost. I've gone places. I've stayed home. Ultimately, I think it does empower me, because it allows me to be wrong. If I can admit that a stranger, silver player, gold player, platinum player, whatever he is, can be right about the criticism he gives me, then I can always, no matter what, find time for the criticism my staff gives me, my players give me, whoever I'm working with give me. And I think that's something that I never want to lose, because ultimately gaining criticism for the people, the right play. And this is a great take into what you mentioned, right? Like, maybe Malice is not as far as you think off Kadril, right? And if you put him on a stage in the same game, same setting, he's going to perform better than Kadril. That's possible, right? But the ultimate goal is that you can give feedback to each other off of that, right?
Sure.
You can feed feedback into each other and be a better player from that perspective. Like, that's what you're looking for. You need to be able to give feedback to each other in order to grow as a team, because even if Malice's play is the correct one, in the situation Kadril is in, perhaps his line of play is the correct one for that particular team. And that's just the way this game works. Sure, you can have the best line of play and make the best line of play 100 games in a row and have a negative win rate in this game. That's how it is, based on your teammates. And that's the same in professional play as well as in soloQ. That's the same thing. It's no different. Yeah. Like, if I play 100 games against Damwon Gaming and I make the correct line of play 100 times, my win rate is not going to be positive unless I've got a team that can be as good as Damwon, right? That's the way it is. Every single one of your players has to make the right decision. But that's the fun about this game. The right decision is not always
well, it's the same thing about any team game, right?
One.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's not always the optimal one. Like, how many basketball games, football games, League of Legends games, chess games have been won by making a play that isn't optimal, just because the enemy player was not prepared for it?
I'll give you the open example, mate. There's actually a really gangster example that people might know when I reference it, but you won't know otherwise. Which is, like, so, you know, famously, like, 30 years ago now, they had the first computer, Deep Blue, that was able to do like a tie with Garry Kasparov, right? So similarly, right, the reason why the computers, though, will never be the absolute best, because chess at the moment hasn't been solved as a game. It's still wide open, right? But that Korean game called Go, where it's those black and white things, that actually was solved. And so when the AI played the god of Go a couple of years back, it actually destroyed him in every game but one. And the one game it didn't destroy him in was because he was getting wrecked by this computer. And he was the best player ever, by the way. He was like the faker of Go. He was getting wrecked by the computer. So what he did was, on this one game, just to test, because he thought, right, well, the ultimate flaw of the computer is it has to do the correct play. It has to. So he found one move that you can do like once in a bazillion chances that is wrong, but because it's wrong, makes the computer like fuck up, and that's how he won one game. So what was great was, in the end, it was like some sort of mad like John Connor against Skynet moment. Like there's still a way for the human to be right. It was actually pretty cool. I thought it was a pretty good angle.
I actually remember a League of Legends one. This ruler's ult flash in season 6. Was it 7? It's season 7. Season 7. He ult flashed Faker, and this was a meta where AD carry was everything. Hey, your AD carry, like it was ardent meta. If your AD carry died, your fight was over. If the enemy AD carry lived and yours died, it was over. But he risked his ult flash, hoping Faker wouldn't flash it, right? Because if Faker flashes and Varus loses his flash, your AD carry's flash, your mid laner's flash, it's a huge deal, right? That game can go either way all of a sudden, right? But he made the decision to go for it. He hit it, Faker died, and, well, Faker cried. Again, like, it's just one of those moments where is the optimal play is that not the optimal play for Ruler in that situation? Is that the correct play? Is that what can lead to a guaranteed win? No. Him losing his flash there opens up a whole different line of play for a lot of champions in that game. And you don't know what's actually going to happen after that happens. But if it connects, you win the game on the spot. So whether or not it's wrong or right isn't really the point. The point is are you a player that can adapt, and are you willing to make that risk? Are you willing to go on the fly and full flash there and lose your flash and still be in a situation where you can carry that game? Are you good enough to do that? Are you ballsy enough to pull off plays? And that's why, for example, the whole Cadrill Malice discussion that you brought up was like, you don't have to be the best player or the smartest player.
We both had points in their own ways, I'm sure.
Exactly. Like, sure, you can argue that the optimal play is the optimal play. Like, you can do an optimal clear that should be right on paper, but are you playing around every single factor if you're doing that? Or are you just playing your optimal game and expecting everybody else to play your optimal game? Because the amount of times I've played on stage and I played a matchup where I noticed someone makes a mistake level 1. In fact, I had this happen multiple times over summer split. I was playing against Wunder. I was playing Gangplank at the Camille, and I had him use his flash and his teleport level 1 in a Camille Gangplank matchup. That's never supposed to happen. That can't happen, actually. Like, unless Camille is really messing up, right? But people don't notice this because, again, I was ready to punish that, and he was willing to fight me. And the matter is that the optimal play for me? To fight him to the death like that and, like, get his teleport and flash? No, but I know that I'm in an advantage situation, and I might not make the optimal play that will yield me the best results over 100 games. But in that particular game, it has the chance, and this is where you min-max, and I think this is a huge deal in League of Legends, min-maxing, where you min-max to see what your best odds are.
This is how Bwipo has stayed in Fnatic all these years, guys, because when the game goes really bad and he doesn't, he just goes, does anyone remember Ruler's Flash against Faker? Now, that wasn't the opening yet. This whole speech is prepared, guys. He's done this a million times.
We really just have to get better at making the proper line of play under unexpected circumstances. It's all about the improvisation, guys, and deep game knowledge. We can't get caught up in the mistake. We have to think about how we can win more effectively with the mistake.
Something like that. Like, ultimately, what it comes down to is just you need to play the game. That's what it comes down to. You need to play the game. You need to be a smart player that will play the game. That's just the way it is. You can't, in my opinion, you can't be a successful professional player if you play optimally every single game because your teammates won't. It's not possible. It just doesn't exist. I won't eat. Like, let's say I'm a player that I will play the next 100 games of my career. I signed a contract with the devil. The 100 next games I will play, I will make 0 mistakes. That doesn't mean I have a 100% win rate.
Now, listen, I never called Sam Matthews the devil. Oh, sorry, that was just a figure of speech. By the way,
he's about to announce his contract with Astralis, though.
There you go. This actually feeds it. They couldn't afford him, mate. This actually feeds into a point I made in a video that was similar, which is, you know, when everyone on Reddit does that classic thing, where, listen, I'm not going to make the whole, like, Elo hell doesn't exist thing. We all know that's somewhat nonsense, right? The idea that they think they're in bronze because the team... Right. But what I made the point is that they're not even totally wrong. Like, I'll give you an example. Obviously, the person who's going to make that mistake the most is the guy who's not very good at League, but they watch loads of pro games. So what they're saying, which is correct, by the way, is my teammates are playing incorrectly. But what they don't understand, the point I made, which is actually a fairly shrewd one, I think, is... you're also not playing correctly because you're in bronze. Like, if your support is some idiot who's playing Soda for the first time, don't go for some crazy Vayne dive in where they have to peel perfectly for you and hit every, like, it ain't going to happen, homie. You're in bronze. Like, you're actually playing inappropriately, even if you're doing exactly what fucking Uzi I did. Like, that will lose you the game. Like, it might sound mad, but you should actually play worse, but in a way that's appropriate to your level.
The way that I used to play in solo queue was just doing really stupid picks like Udyr and jungling, just because I could solo dragon, and I knew that I could just avoid the enemy jungler and take all the objectives for my team, and that they weren't going to help me. So
that would be OP now, mate. If you just take all the dragons while they don't even notice.
But by the way, it was OP at the time too. But
yeah, but could you even imagine being the other team now in bronze, where you just keep seeing like dragons? Like, what? The dragon, like, so watching this, like, no, because we're in bronze for all, no one knows how jungle works. So they're still clearing the camps.
This is one of the reasons why I didn't spend a lot of time playing League of Legends, because the way that I knew was my best way to get a high win rate in non-professional play was incredibly useless to my knowledge of professional play. So it was like, should I spend this hour playing Udyr in Plat solo queue in Korea, or should I watch a match of professional teams from China? I'm like,
exactly.
I think I know which one is better to my professional development.
It's just that simple. I mean, ultimately, when it comes down to it, is even when I smurf right now, like, in fact, I'll have a great example. The way I play on the Chinese server compared to the European server is completely different.
Tell me how.
I bet he's like all reserved and respectful.
Oh, absolutely. No, I have to be
really go the opposite. Okay.
Absolutely. Like, I don't contest. Like, the thing is, it's a team game, and every single, no matter what it is, if your jungler pings an objective, it's an objective. It pings something, it's the objective. The scuttle grab has been pinged. The whole fucking squad has to come over, or they get off.
Take to the scuttle crab, everyone.
The whole squad. And again, and this is the thing, right? The reason why this works, and why, for example, I had a very high win rate, is because ultimately, the decisions people make were not wrong. They took what they can take, but they were a team objective. And if you didn't show up, you were the griefer. Even though you could argue that, oh, I'm playing my scaling champion. Like, I'm playing, let's say you're playing Cassiopeia, which is a very popular pick in China, by the way, which is surprisingly, right? The super scaling champion. Like, why would Cassiopeia be popular in China? It's because ultimately, if you can take what you can take, which the people are smart enough to decide, like, you ping the scuttle crab, they're not going to grief the game going for a scuttle crab they can't get. They will go for one that they can, and they expect the whole team to come if the enemy team contests or not. Just show up. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the junglers are smart enough to make these calls, and they are smart enough to actually evaluate what's happening in the lanes. So when this call is made to contest the crab, even though it might be a bloodbath and there might be 7 kills at minute 3 at this crab because it's a 4-man fight, you know what? 9 kills because the enemy top laners are teleporting in as well, because why not? There's actually a thought behind it. Like, it makes sense. Like, you can contest that. You can contest that. That's the thing. You can. And the question is do you want to or not, and how relevant is that for the game? And that's where, in my opinion, the game is exciting. That's why it's fun to play. That's why I super enjoyed playing in Chinese solo queue, because, yeah, sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes you have griefers. You always do, no matter where you play. But ultimately, when these decisions were made, and I had to teleport down for a crab with a terrible wave state, and I could, no matter what, I had no chance of coming back into that game, it made sense for my team to contest that. Right? It made sense for me to have to sacrifice for my team so that my team was in a better situation. And I really feel like when you compare Asian solo queue, and I'm not, I shouldn't say Asian solo queue, I should say Korean or Chinese, because I haven't experienced like Philippines and whatnot. But like the biggest servers in China and in Korea, that game, League of Legends, feels like a team game. I feel like I'm playing a team game. Every single thing I do, I feel like I'm integrated in my team, and everything I do has an impact on my team as well as the opposite. When I play,
it's quite cool considering you can't type to them, and you having to just feel the game. Then, yeah.
When I play in Europe, I feel like I have to play single player. Everyone's playing single player. Everyone's playing single. Like, I don't even understand what is happening. Like, everyone's playing single, and I understand everyone wants to play single player, but why? Like, what is this? I can't play the same game. I cannot play the same game in Europe as I do in China. It's not possible. I have to play super selfishly, and play in a way where I can't trust half of my teammates with any type of advantage, because not only they can't pilot their champions at a challenger level, which I don't know why this is a thing, but it is. It honestly is a thing.
Someone please just clip that segment where he just starts like, I can't trust any of my teammates. They can't even pilot any of it. And someone's going to put only that clip on Reddit. They're not going to know the context. That you're talking about Chinese solo queue.
Like, ultimately, when you're playing solo queue, you like half the people in Challenger can't pilot their champions to the extent that they should be able to, right? They have an idea, they understand, but it's not like when I play in Chinese solo queue and I watch a champion, like I think I played in total somewhere like 500 games, and there are multiple games over that 500. It's like At least half of them where I'm like, wow, that guy did that. Wow, like that was impressive. Like this guy knows how to play as champion. I have this in Europe, I think once in 100 games, where I'm like, this guy's mechanics are actually really fucking clean. Like this guy played that exactly how you like. There's no way you could play that better. And he does it more than once in the game. Like he's consistently displaying mechanics of this level.
I mean, you're like, damn, I hope I get matched against the Antonio again.
Well, there you have it. Like that's a way of looking at it, right? Whereas in Chinese, like, you know, we've all like I don't know if you saw the Fiora clip on Reddit where he one-shot wonder, like he parried a taunt and then literally popped 4 vitals in a second and one-shot the guy. It's like that's normal. Like you get parried there, you're dead. Like the idea isn't like this Fiora did that once. No, it's like you get parried there, you're gonna die. You can't do that, and it makes the games way more exciting to play because you're playing against players that they don't assume that they can kill you. They know that they're going to kill you. They know. It's not a matter of like the decisions that are being made are basically on the base level is I think I can kill this guy. But the thing is, it's not I think, I know I can kill you. So the question is, am I going to or not? And the answer is always yes, because if you're a good player in this game, you're always going to take a kill if you can get it right. Like ultimately, 300 gold experience, there's reasons to kill someone in the game, right? So when you play in Chinese soloQ, and this is comparing to Korean soloQ, it's not about taking the space, playing smart. It's literally just, if I can kill you, I will take the chance to kill you.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right.
And this is, I think, the difference in why Korean soloQ is considered the better soloQ, because a great analogy that I was actually talking about earlier with someone is, I don't know if you know AlphaGo, like the whole AlphaGo story. I'm not too well versed about the game, but I understand that the goal of the game is to take more space, right? Mm-hmm. So winning with 50.1% is winning. I think this is way more close to Korean soloQ with the idea of you play for the 50.1% and you're happy. You take that win. Chinese soloQ is, if you're going for anything other than 99.9, when you can,
yeah, exactly.
You're missing opportunities, so you're playing wrong. And I think that this is like a huge cultural difference, because despite this mentality of, you would think 5 people on each team trying to kill each other all the fucking time, the whole game long, everyone's trying to kill each other, you would have the most selfish 1 versus 1 type of style that you could find. It's the opposite. It's a full team game because everyone is calculating the input someone can bring on stopping you from killing that guy or helping you kill that guy, right? That's what makes it, like, I don't know, that was my take on the Chinese soloQ and why I can't even, like, I'm not even playing League of Legends, right? Like, when I play on European soloQ, I'm not even playing League of Legends, honestly. Like, it's not comparable. It's not even the same game. I don't know what to tell you. It's not even the same game. It's not even close.
How much better do you think you became as a player as a result of being in China over Worlds and being in this experience? And how much did it help the team as well, your teammates in Fnatic?
I'm sure it helped a lot of my teammates, but for me, it's always been a huge difference. Like, one of the reasons why my 2018 Worlds performance was far better than any of the tournaments I've really played at is, in my opinion, also a big deal because of soloQ. Korean soloQ and Chinese soloQ in both these cases helped me as an individual player, like, significantly, because I tried to be a part of, like, I just really resonated with the way people play the game here, or here. Unfortunately, not here. In China, sorry. My mind's still over there, losing to top esports. But the point is I really resonate with the idea that this is a team game. Like, you invest your resources, you get them back. It's a strategy game at its core. And the only reason it's not is because of the culture people in Western regions have, you know? Like, I grew up being a child at like 12, 14, watching Trick2G play Udyr, running around, stealing people's jungle.
And of culture, I see.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, I saw him like 3.14, he was playing Nunu, like running in the
classic, when he gets all the buffs in the first like 5 minutes of the whole game.
And the enemy jungle is level 1 at minute 4. Like, I've seen that stuff too, and that's a very selfish way of playing. And the thing is because people aren't, like, they're not as experienced with old games. I'm sure that a lot of these Chinese players, a lot of these Korean players had played games like StarCraft. You know, they have touched on games like StarCraft. Like, I mean, I don't know any other examples, but I'm sure there are other Chinese games, like mainstay games, strategy games that are super popular that have influence on this, that make them view the game as a real, like an RTS game. Like, you're just playing a real-time strategy game in the end of the day. The only difference is you're playing with 4 other human beings that are all making their own decisions. And I think the problem is that the culture here, and I think this is why some very good Western players have a really hard time climbing in the solo queue, because they are at their core selfish players. So when they have to play a team-based game and have to invest their resources as well as so give and take, not just take, they tend to struggle to perform because, like I said, you will get griefed if you don't show up. People will blame you. The dragon fight is lost. You press tab and you're like, there's no way we win this fight. You're expected to show up because if you don't, you're the reason we lost. If you show up and you do everything you can to win the fight, but you still lose, not your fault, you know, like, oh, it wasn't my problem, you know, like, oh, no worries, guys, let's just go next. And FFO opens and everyone's gone to the next game, no problem. But I think the culture is way better for mental strength as well, which is something that Asian players have in spades over Western players. Like, it's just a fact. If you look at any best of 5 against a Western or an Asian team versus a Western team, or even Asian versus Asian, I think it's very rare where you see the last 2 games go to shit. I think it's very rare over the years, right? Like maybe maybe Damwon versus Suning wasn't the greatest. I don't actually remember the last game that well. But
Suning got their teeth kicked.
Got
crushed. Yeah,
they got absolutely owned.
Which honestly they should have for the first.
Yeah. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Barons, you know, they decided to give some Barons. So again, that's why I believe that.
I mean, my personal favorite was in game 1 when Damwon forgot that Shen can ult and then decided to int, and then in game 3 when they were like, we are up by a lot, should we just throw at Baron? And then they tried. And then they still won both of those games. So, you know, credit to them. Anyway.
The reason why I learned this the most, and this is the reality check I got, is when I was playing as Nuguri in scrims. And this is the thing, I'm going to brag a little bit here because I never got the chance to, over 2 years that I've scrimmed this guy in 2018 and 2020. I never got the chance to brag about the fact that I was destroying this guy in scrims every single chance I got. At some point in scrims, I was counting the amount of solo kills I had from the first block, and I was over 10. This guy was griefing it. I swear, you can ask anyone on my team, they'll confirm that this guy had games where he was going 0-10-0 on Jace, just sprinting it down in scrims. Actually sprinting it. But this guy showed up, he was dealing that, like, his Jace was still Jace, like, it was 0-10 Jace, but it wasn't 0-10 Jace like you know it. It was 0-10 Jace, like, what? This guy is still one-shotting half my team. Because the guy, he dies, but he's farming, he's dealing damage. Like, every death has like a reason. I mean, maybe not, probably not at that point, but he's still relevant in the game. He has the mental strength to continue playing the game and making the right decisions. He's not stopping. He's not like, oh, whatever, you know, like, I don't care anymore. Never. The guy was just dying on repeat over and over again. Like, there was one game in particular where he had like 12 deaths or something. He was like 0-9-0 or something, actually straight up in his script. And his whole team just kept playing the game. Not a single, like, it didn't seem, like, his whole team was just playing as if nothing was happening. And the game was actually hard to win. Can you imagine? You're playing in someone that's 9-0-9 and you still can't just win the game because his whole team just acts as if nothing's happening. Nothing's wrong. It's just they're playing the game. Sure, Jace is not as, like, enemy Renekton is like twice as strong as he should be, but who cares? Like, they're just playing the game. They're making decisions around that. They're playing the game around the fact of how strong I am. And it's something that really impressed me, really, about Damwon in general. Most Asian teams have this culture of, no matter how hard the game is, they will play out the game in a way where they will continue playing. And I think this is, honestly, a trait only the Shy and Nuguri have. The amount of deaths doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, honestly, it doesn't matter. They will die gaining resources. They will die for those resources. But they will gain resources no matter what, which means that, you know, other than the 0-10 Kennen game he had, that one, like that one, sure, maybe his build wasn't too great. But outside of that one, they're always a threat. And this is something I respect a lot and something that I want to build into my play, but sometimes I just die for fun. So
when it comes to Damwon, I'm very curious to hear your take, because at the start of the
I'm just going to grab a drink a second.
Yeah. At the start of the tournament, there was obviously a lot of hype about top and Damwon kind of being the two favorites, with JDG maybe being a tier below those, and maybe G2 being down there. You guys obviously had a very strong summer playoffs performance as well. What was the kind of, because what's interesting about being at Worlds is that all the players are talking to each other, so there's kind of like people are discussing like, oh, which teams are strong. Was it clear to you guys from the beginning, from how scrims were going and from how you were seeing matches, that Damwon was, you know, the favorite, or were they powering up throughout the tournament, or what was the narrative inside the Worlds teams about Damwon.
Well, my experience was that, right? Like I told you, most of the scrims, I think, like I was killing Nuguri over and over again. Like, it's a fact. You know, humble brag, call it what you want, but it's a fact. You know, like the guy was dying a lot in scrims. Maybe had a bad performance, maybe not. I don't know. But even then, the games are hard. You know, like their whole team was playing really well at every given point, and it didn't matter how far behind they were. Like they were watertight. Like they were really good, smart players, mechanically strong, creative. Huge champion pools. It didn't matter. Like pretty much every single metric that you want a strong League of Legends team on, Damwon was hitting the mark.
Was there anyone else that you felt lived up to Damwon's level from the practice or the rumors that you were hearing?
I mean, actually, from my experience, it was Suning, but that's because Bin was the opposite. I was getting trashed by Bin every game, so the guy was making fun of me every game, so I didn't know what to do. You know, I was playing matchups that I smashed in the past. Like I was playing Renekton into Jax, and this guy would make fun of me. You know, I was like, you know, and I knew why. Like the thing is, I knew why I messed up, but you know, I didn't get the chance to rectify the thing because you know, who the fuck blind picks Jax, man? Like, what's wrong with you, man? This guy just didn't care. He just picked the champion and performed on it, and I was just like, well, I guess I lose, you know. I don't know what to say.
To be fair, maybe Nuguri was just nervous because he'd actually never been in the semi-finals of Worlds at that point in time. He was playing a famous player, you know, he used to watch. By the way, that's one thing obviously people have never thought of. Would that have made it interesting for you psychologically if you had have made it past the top thing? Because you would have played in the semi-finals. And he was
it does play. I mean, for me, I mean, again, I'm a griefer. I'm a griefer through and through. You know, like you think I'm a griefer on stage, you ain't seen shit. You know, like I play soloQ with a pure intent of making the most out of my champion at every single chance I get. I will dash into the enemy team 5 times doing the same exact play, playing a champion like Lucian until it works. And when it works, I'll know when it works. That's the way I play the game because ultimately you don't get quality practice playing this game. You can't like put on a scenario where you play out a team fight and you're going to dash in and then you keep doing it until you hit it. No, you have to actually grief people in order to get there. And yeah, I mean, it's not great for them. And ultimately, I've reached a point where usually I'm not griefing because thanks to the experience I've gathered, watching, which is a big deal, watching other players play, as well as playing myself, I reached a point where I usually carry the games anyway, right? Like I make a mistake, I can make up for it. But I think a lot of up-and-coming rookies are scared of this. They're scared of griefing. You know, they're scared of dashing in and making a huge play. And they're scared of even trying to do it. And the problem with that is that if you're not going to do it in practice, you're not going to do it on stage. And if you're not going to do it on stage, well, what's your purpose really? Like if you're a carry player, you know, like I'll give you an example, right? Cries, you know, comes up carry player for Excel. Sure, statistics are good. He is a carry player, but is he a player that will challenge the enemy team to kill him? No, he won't. Caps is a great example of a player that does this. Every single game you play against Caps, this guy will challenge you over and over again to kill you. I'll name you another guy that was really good at it up until 2 certain best of 5s. Jackie Love. He was really good at challenging the enemy team to kill him. And if you did, congratulations. And if you didn't, well, the game was getting really hard, really fast. Well, unfortunately, the enemy team was pretty good at killing him. So at least Suning Gaming sent him home. But it was the same in our game. Like, he was challenging our bot lane to kill him over and over again. Unfortunately for me, they were, right?
By the way, let's just get into the matches. So let's start with this match here, right? Sure. One thing I want to ask you about, because unfortunately, because of the way that series happened and everyone in the West hit their emotional high in game 3 when it looked like you were going to win and even like everything was looking nice, the draft was all good. Everyone forgets, right, the way the series started, where the series started with Bwipo saying, right, I'm against the favourites for Worlds here, so I'll just go ahead and pull out my Singed. Game 1 against potentially the best team. No, you got to tell me about that, man. I haven't heard anyone ask about that.
That was a baller move for sure.
I don't feel like it, honestly.
People don't know that actually was like low key, actually a pretty good answers to some of the shit that 369 played. Actually, it's quite interesting. So, what was the thinking on that?
Well, one thing is my support asked me like, please, can you blind pick Singed? I was like, I'm not going to, but there you go. That's how much we love Singed. The thought process was simple. Is you know, we like playing Graves. Like, once we had Graves, we liked having Graves, right? So, in general, AD junglers were something we preferred. So we needed AP champions, AP answers. I know I played Singed into Ornn in the past. I can do it again, right? There you go. It's that simple. It wasn't really a huge deal, you know? For us, it wasn't like, oh, Singed is like this whole strategy. The only thing we knew is that Singed W is a really OP spell, and when Hilly plays Rakan and I play Singed, it's really easy to set up fights, you know? Like when you're playing against someone like Jackie Love, no matter if he's playing Ezreal or not, Singed's W is really good at killing people. Like, if you get cocky, you will die just by this guy pressing W on you. There's nothing you can do. You're just dead. And Singed Rakan is something that it came in together at the end of the draft. We weren't intending to play, but like, let's say you play Singed Leona, like you can't cleanse flash out of Singed W. Yeah. You're stuck. So a lot of support combinations together with Singed like are really OP. And in a carry meta where you have like a dog support that runs around the CC, like Nautilus, Pantheon, Leona, Rakan, and then maybe like, sure, you had some Lulu and stuff, but usually it was the melee supports, right? If you combine that with some high burst damage from your mid laner or jungler with a grounding effect that you can just chuck out whenever you want, it's a pretty good champion. Like, I think he's super unexplored, and honestly, I think my Singed performance was abysmal. It was terrible. Like, my Singed is nowhere near good enough to be considered a good Singed player. I just know how to use the W spell, and that was enough. That was enough. That's how OP Singed is, really. If I can get through laning phase, with even dying twice or 3 times, I think it's 1 and 3 at some point in that game.
I think it's especially a good pick for Fnatic just because you guys have shown this year, this particular group of 5 players, that you are very good at applying split push pressure, which Singed has always been super strong on. And what that's how, when we saw the kind of Hillsong split push supports that we were seeing in spring. So you're also very patient as a group, and you know how to set up to make those plays. Well,
patience is maybe a bit too much. We've jumped the gun a couple of times this year.
Sure, but it is very hard to have that patience to apply that pressure. And so for me, this is a really good pick for you guys in the way that you play as a team.
I mean, I can agree with that. Ultimately, Singed is one of those champions that also cheats the pressure in the side lane, right? Like, the split pushing thing is like, even if I'm weaker than someone, I can just walk past you, Like, if you want to go chase me, and then let's go have fun, let's see what happens. But ultimately, like, that's Singed's thing, right? Is getting side lane priority when he's not supposed to, because he just randomly decides it's finding that opening. Like, when can I run to the proxy? When can't I? But as a champion, I think he's super unexplored. He's super strong as a laner. Like, I think he has a lot of tools.
It's just sort of as a gimmick, unfortunately, isn't it? So people aren't even open to the idea of using it.
Yeah, of course. It's just like, as a champion, like, he's the only champion in the game that can proxy as effectively as he does, right? Like, at some, like, sure, there's like Sion, but he has to die to proxy, right? Like, Singed can proxy a wave and walk away. I did it in that game, like 4 people showed up. I'm like, see ya. Like, all right, I'll just burn flash and I'll see you tomorrow. Like, I got the wave as well. That's the thing. Like, you don't stop me from taking your wave. You can kill me, but you don't stop me from taking the wave, which is why this champion is so strong, is because he cheats the game. Like, the concept of League of Legends as a laning champion is still to farm creeps, right? Like, you kill creeps, you get experience, you get big. If I can cheat a way to kill creeps without you interacting with me, then my champion has more time to do other things. And that's why Singed, I think, is a super unexplored champion, and why I don't think I'm very good at him, because I can't actually use these advantages.
I mean, on those lines, that might even be one of those areas where people haven't actually done the equation correct, because the whole point is, like, they kill you. Normally, killing you is a good thing. But what you have to add up is, what is that kill worth to their team versus the minions you got and the pressure, and that you drew people to the lane? Maybe that actually, in some scenarios, is a negative. Like, actually killing someone there is like, it's the equivalent in football, Monty, of when you like score a touchdown too late, but it's like you were trying to milk the clock instead, and it's actually bad to score a touchdown like that.
Yeah, it's well, the thing that Singed does, and the thing that any champion that can proxy farm does, is that when the idea behind getting a kill is that you want to transition it into some sort of objective, right? If everyone's going to collapse on that side of the map, you're committing resources, right, to kill somebody to accomplish a herald or a dragon or a baron or a tower or something on the map, right? Vision control even. The problem is when somebody's proxying you, you collapse on that side of the map and you have like negative pressure in the lane, and the other team can do whatever the fuck they want on the map at that point in time. So it's a huge problem, because you have to figure out how to stop this guy from doing that, because he's applying insane pressure by proxying, because he's getting damage down on your turret. But also, if you all show up there, you just give up everything on the map. So there's not really a good answer to this is the issue. And so that's why I think Singed is, I agree that he does have some unique power that warps the game in a very weird way that teams have to deal with. And if you're not prepared for that, it can be a challenge.
I'm just waiting until Bwipo becomes a coach, mate. That's going to be, he is going to be the fucking Mighty Ducks coach. It's going to be amazing.
I actually want to be a player that does that too. Like, I don't want to be like a coach. Like, if I'm going to be a coach, which I will be eventually, or I won't be, because I feel like
those are the two options. You covered all the options.
I want to look at the casting. Actually, casting is something that actually appeals to me. So,
that'd be great.
But ultimately, like as a player right now, I feel like it's a huge excuse to be like, I don't feel like my team is good because you can be a coach too. Like as a player, I can tell you what I think. Right? I can tell my teammates like, hey, I think you should do this and this. I think you should. I think the decision you make there is wrong. Like I can coach. I can go over a VOD just like Youngbuck did, just like Mithy did. I'm capable of doing that, right? And most players are capable of doing that. Most players actually can go in more depth than coaches can.
Yeah.
Right. So why is it that as a player, players aren't expected to do that? Why is that?
Oh, no, by the way, I agree. I've actually told this to certain players. I won't mention them all, but I'll mention a couple that might have addressed some of these things publicly. People like Doublelift. When people like Doublelift, right, before he was winning championships, would be on teams where he would say, oh, my team is just not as good. I was like, and what are you doing to help them? He'd be like, what do you mean? I'm just playing AD carry as well as I can. I was like, no, dude, if you actually think you're looking at their game and you think you know what they don't understand about could be just a map concept, go and help them then. Like if you're again, you can't go, my coach is too bad. Then help them, like instill some of the championship DNA in them that you claim to have. Like if that guy gets even 1% better, maybe you win the game now, bro. Like that could be all it takes.
Well, and then you have people that disagree with you, and that's where a coach should come.
Certainly.
That's my opinion. That's my opinion. That's what a coach should be, right? It's like they should find the middle ground. I don't think a coach should tell you how to play the game or tell your other players how to play the game, because honestly, he's not as good at the game, right? Else he'd be playing. That's just a fact. No one that's like, why is Mithy a coach this year? Is it because he's better than Hylissang? No offense to Mithy, like Mithy is like he was a great player, and honestly, I like from spending a year with him, I still believe he's got it, right? He can be that player. It's just he needs things to be in a certain way, right? As a player, he needs things to be in a certain way. He needs to be able to bring what he brings to a team, but that's only possible when things are the way he wants them to be. And that's obviously a different talent for a different breed of like professional player, right? Like being able to adapt to your situation. But I believe that that's the main reason why Mithy isn't like doing well. You know, like how can you go from, like I don't even know what happened in TSM, but let's be real. Like how can you go from winning 2 years in a row, 4 championships in a row, showing up to every international event to whatever happened at TSM? Like realistically speaking, there's no chance Mithy got that much worse. There's no way. Like it's not true. Like you can actually watch his games where he's playing professionally. You can see that his mechanics are still like his mechanics in the games were still comparable. Like I'm not saying that they were insane. He's not a Hylissang, but they were comparable from G2 era to TSM era, right? So what happened there? It must have been team related, right?
Yeah, of course. I will nitpick and just say he did technically only win 3 in a row. And the reason I say that, normally I don't nitpick, because here's the thing. The reason I nitpick that one is he literally lost the other final. So if you're on the losing side of it, it's like back in, you remember this, Monty, in season 3, the casters in LCS in Europe used to go, Fnatic here, of course, the champions of season 1. I was like, dude, 2 of the guys were on the losing team on that match because they were in against. I was like, that's blowing my brain to say that. Like 2 of them were the winners, 2 of the losers. You were like, and when they won the season 1 championships, like that doesn't make any sense. I mean, but anyway, that's by the by.
No, I agree.
That goes into my like tilting thing about how even like it's very famous in sports. They're like, let me show you the historical matchup between these 2 teams. And I'm like, you're talking about like 30 iterations of those teams. So I don't see how this is relevant.
Listen, I can't remember who I'm flaming now, but I know it was an LEC caster. And so unfortunately, they're going to get their feelings hurt. But in the moment last year, because I saw it in that Perks montage the other day, the one of him being like the GOAT. And in that game last year, when I think he's on Zaya or something, and he's against SK Telecom, and he beats SK Telecom in the semis of Worlds, and the caster from Europe goes, and they've beaten the greatest League of Legends team of all time. And it's like, only Faker was on that team. So like, listen, if he'd said Org, fine. But like the team part triggered me. Because the problem is, if I'm a fan, I'm like, holy shit, that was the best team ever. It's like, no. Like one guy was, and even he would look back and go, I'm not really the guy he's to beat. But, you know, I'm trying. I'm doing my best here. Just a little pet peeve.
That's right.
No, I understand. I mean, I agree with that. Ultimately,
no, the thing is,
it's a famous thought experiment, right? Like the ship of Theseus, which is like if you take this ship, right, and it's in a museum or whatever, but you replace every single part as it decays on the ship. Is it even the same ship anymore, right? It's a thought experiment, but especially in teams, you can't you can't ever make those comparisons. And I really hate how sports do it. And you know what's funny, Thorin, is what happens is when I mention this in esports, I'm like, we really shouldn't do that. And people are like, why? They do it in sports. I'm like, well, that's just an appeal to antiquity, logical fallacy. So it's just like, why do we have to do things that way?
Though, to tie into the point I actually interrupted that, what I wanted to ask you was this. What does that actually imply? Like, when you've had Mithy as a coach, well, the whole reason why, and obviously we saw this with Bjergsen's retiring, where everyone who hasn't even thought for a second, like, does he have experience? What do you got? They just assumed, because I think he's a really good player and I think he must know a lot about the game, he'd be the best coach. Like, amazing. So the reason why people were very excited for Mithy, I even made this point, Mithy's one of the only players I actually felt certain would be a good coach. But even then, you might notice I was actually critical when he came into Fnatic. I was like, but I don't know if it's with this set of players. Like, because the thing I know about him is he is the ultimate example of the guy who did what you said. When he was a player, he effectively did coach his teammates. Apparently in TSM to the detriment of his own players, supposedly, because people say he was. I've had it from inside that he apparently was just teaching Mike Young how to play a professional jungle while trying to play support. So you can imagine that could tax you a little bit, you know. But here's the question: when he comes along as a coach, though, like. That's why I say with the right players, because what you just nailed there is the whole thing. What made him a great player was almost like a perfectionist mindset of like, guys, listen, if we just do everything the way I see it, we will win. And so then if people bought into that, you could do it. But the problem is if you're not a player anymore, that you can't really have that mentality as a coach, right? So how was that aspect? Like, how was he different as a coach, do you think?
I mean, from my experience and obviously the talks we had, it was a rough year for Fnatic, ultimately. It was a very rough year. We had a lot of these talks, a lot of like, how the fuck did we end up here? Like, what went wrong? How the like?
I mean, it ended pretty well.
I mean, sure, but we almost missed playoffs in summer.
Yes,
like,
they almost missed playoffs as well.
Yeah, well, I do want to talk about. We'll talk later about that, but yeah,
sure. Like, but ultimately, that was our year, right? That's what it came down to. Like, sure, like 0-3 finals times 2. Like, sure, you made finals, right? But that's fine. Like spring split, I don't think anyone is looking back at our spring split other than me, because I had a really bad performance. It's like, oh, what the fuck happened here, you know? But summer split, I think our whole team's like, whoa. Like, our whole team was just like, whoa, what is happening? And how do we stop it from happening? Which, you know, ended up being playing carry jungles. But in the talks I had with Mithy, there was like, it's something I realized is like, Mithy has a vision for his team. His vision is like a brotherhood, you know? His team is a band of brothers that just go on the battlefield together. They die together. They live together. You know, it's
full Mithy brotherhood.
Through and through.
There's the title of the episode.
Through and through. That's what he wants to have in his team, and he wants everyone to be connected with each other, through and through, as much as possible. And when that doesn't happen, you confront each other. And these are the two things that Fnatic was not able to do.
And by the way, far superior to full Mithy Alchemist. Which is actually, you know, what a lot of casuals get into, but just start with Brotherhood. It's better. Actually, you know?
Oh, point is, nice reference. I like it.
All right, there we go. I started Weave one in there for you guys. You know,
the thing is I didn't actually. I watched the first one and not the second one.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm a zoomer.
All right.
Like that. I'm a zoomer like that.
All right.
Point being, we as a team were not able to live up to that, and his value dwindled significantly as it went on. Like in spring split, we were much closer to that ideal than we were in summer, and I think that's one of the reasons why coaching staff, like, eventually it just didn't work as well, right? Like our whole team didn't work as well, and this is a part of it, right? I'm not blaming Mithy. It's not Mithy's fault, you know. A lot of people blame someone, and like people blame LS for our situation at points, and I'm just
like, come on, guys, listen, there's a lot of things in this world you can blame LS for, but like, let's blame him for the things he didn't do. Let's just blame him for the shit he actually said and did. Like, you know, I'm being fair, you know. I like the guy, but let's just be fair. Like,
we'll be able to blame him in the future for ruining Faker, apparently. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll get to those rumors.
Heard that one. Wow.
We're not revealing anything. So, but apparently, yeah, on Reddit it's claimed that someone leaked that he's going to be the coach of T1.
Well, let's have a look.
Which I will say, one thing, whether it happens or not, who can know, right? Who knows if that's real? Who knows, right? But all I'll say is this. Right. That is a pretty gangster moment if you're LS, because after years of people on Reddit who were like, you know, he's not even actually Diamond on career. He was just carried to that point. Like, well, if you're so smart, why don't you coach a team then? If you do that, and then it's like, just walk out one day on stream. This is Faker. Faker's like, yes, boss. It's like, any questions? Thought not. Turn the stream off. That's gangster. You won already, LS. Like, no matter what happens in the game, you could go 0-18. You could lose the whole thing. For that moment, you beat everyone on Reddit. You just won. You won the internet for that day. That's true. That's pretty cool.
That is awesome. I mean, it would be awesome. It would be very interesting to see how that team goes. And again, I believe LS is also in an idea with Mithy in the same like scope of coaching staff, and the idea that if their vision needs to be pushed by the whole team, it's not something that can be shared by the whole team. It's not something that can exist within the whole team. It needs to be pushed. You need your whole team to stand behind it and make it a reality, right? You can't just buy into it. You have to make it. You have to believe it. You have to breathe it. You don't have a choice. That's the type of style I believe Mithy is like, would be very successful in as a coach, and whether or not he can find that or not, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure what he's going to do next year either. But I know that after this year, I think he wants to like revise. You know, like I don't think he'll jump into coaching immediately. At least not our
Along
team.
these lines, by the way, I've got another question, because one of the things about that sort of a coach that I appreciate is what everyone else hates about them, which is they hate when they think they're stubborn, right? Like, oh, he thinks he knows better. Dude, I love that quality. If someone thinks they know better, but they are also someone who spends a lot of time thinking about the game, like the idea is they didn't just think of the first thing and decide they know everything, but they think, because I've put so much thought and modeled the game this way and figured out all these principles. And essentially what they're saying is, if you don't prove I'm wrong, I'm going to assume I'm correct at the moment. So here's the thing I like about that sort of coach in general, is that they're going to have a coherent philosophy. They can start on day 1, and on day 30, there's going to be a through line that makes sense. And the reason why I want to ask this is, that's been in all of the Fnatic teams you've been in, like a classic quality, actually. Think of the last 2 worlds. Like, Fnatic actually gets better in week 2 heading into the playoffs. Famously, one of the reasons, and I know this from behind the scenes, why a lot of Western teams go to Worlds with hype, even have the story that TSM claimed this year, like the first scrims we're winning and we're doing awesome. But then all of a sudden the story's like, oh, but then second week was bad. And then, you know, the Asians adapted to us. It's like, no, they didn't adapt to you. What happened was, when you started to lose, you decided, I know nothing about League of Legends. Everything I did in Europe was garbage. It's rubbish. Whatever they're doing, I'll just sort of copy them. I don't know what they're doing, but I'll copy their picks. I'll copy their comp. And then what they don't get is, that's the worst. You are rudderless. You are just lost at sea. You're not going any direction. Like, I'd rather you go a direction I don't know is right. Maybe you end up hitting land. Maybe you get somewhere. Like, how does Fnatic do it? Because you did it last year as well. Like, that group looked like it's going to be SKT and RNG that gets out, and Fnatic's going to lose. And it would have been okay to lose that group, but you get out. And like, give us some thoughts on this. How does your team do it?
I mean, like you said, I think it's just something that like we just double down. Like, ultimately, that's what it comes down to. We double down on what we're good at, right? And sometimes you need a slap in the face to realize what you're bad at, right? Why are you trying to accomplish something that you clearly aren't that good at? Like, you're at Worlds. You're not here. And this is the thing, right? You're at Worlds. You're playing with the best in the world, right? And every team is different. So why would you try to be anything but your own different?
Yeah, play your own style is what you're saying. But yeah. I think we saw that too when the meta started to shift and you guys got into the summer playoffs, because, you know, when we were talking about it on this show, we were looking at Fnatic and we said, you've literally lost to like the 5 other teams in the playoffs, every one of them in the last game that you played them, except for SK, right? And you beat them in a meaningless game heading into the playoffs. So expectations were super low for you guys. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you guys come up with these carry jungle strats, and we start to see self-made on the Evelyn, and it becomes very exciting. You guys, everybody's like, oh shit, they figured out the meta finally. What happened in between the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs? And then we saw that same Fnatic show up at Worlds, and just player for player, all of your performances were vastly superior. Right, your performance was a lot better. Reckless's performance was very good at the World Championship.
Hylissang was good. Self-made was good, and then let's just leave it at that. Not to be rude. You know,
Volibear was good too. I saw Volibear do some.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah,
I don't know about Bwipo, but Volibear was pretty good. I mean, ultimately, what it comes down to is at some point, like when you're an elite pro player, you can only take so much. It's that simple. Like, when you're a professional player, you're getting punched in the face every time you try to do what everyone else is doing. And at some point, you're just like, fuck this shit. Like, fuck that. Like, why would I play what that guy's playing? Can't I just play what I'm good at and shit on him? Like, really, guy? Like, really? I can't do that? And that's exactly what happened. You know, it's like, you know what? Like, fuck all this shit. Like,
you say that.
All this shit.
You say that, but also the meta was also like, oh yes, this is the proper way to play. You guys hit a really good timing in terms of this stuff, right?
That's obviously the upside, right? When you hit that, then you hit the gold mine, right? You don't always hit it. Like, for example, Top Esports missed the mark off. Like,
for sure.
ultimately, like, they won their games playing what? Their last games they played Lee Sin, and Jarvan, like, against us. What did they play against Suning? Like, it was the same thing, right?
No, I couldn't even handle the way top, like, the way they decided to play this meta with the players they had was just fucking infuriating. We were talking about this last show, but it was like, why is Knight's most played champion blind pick Orianna? Is that what Knight came to Worlds to play? He's like, please let me show you my control mages. It's like, come on. Nobody wants to watch this. He doesn't want to fucking play this. And you see the games in which he's getting counterpicks, on Echo or something like that, and all of a sudden it's super exciting to watch him play. So I think they were just, I don't know what they were thinking in terms of
they got lost as well. That's an example, Monty, that even the top Asian team can get lost and just think, right, even though we were in theory the best team in the world, forget everything we knew, we're going to play like we're one of the bad teams, basically.
Suning Gaming walked into the same trap. I mean, I saw Tank Rengar winning a game. I didn't see Graves or Nidalee winning games. I'll tell you that much. At least not on the opposite team. Canyon was piloting them. That looked pretty...
Man, that Rengar, actually, that's what's funny, is everyone was making fun of that.
No, your tweets about Rengar were super good.
It was interesting.
I knew why. I know why. In fact, whenever an enemy team was locking in Evelyn, Selfmade was looking at him like, please lock in Rengar. Just make him miserable, because the way the champions interact is just unplayable for Evelyn. Like, she has only one play, which is to hug your team. And if you're gonna play a champion like Evelyn to hug your team, then you're actually useless. Because if you get caught by his ultimate, it's so lost.
Yeah, you brought up a really interesting point that's like even funnier in the context of like, because it really was my favorite game of the World Finals, and the points you made were super good because strategically it was a very interesting counter pick, and it's not just like one of those lame counter picks that's just like a 1v1 counter pick. It was like a entire play style counter pick where the ult is just constantly detecting the Evelyn, so you basically can't play Evelyn. And the point you made about Rengar's W, I had not even thought about, where it's like when Evelyn ults, then you just press W, you get all your health back, and there's no point to ulting. So I was like, and then he builds tank on top of that, and I see him with like Warmogs, and he's getting half his health back, and I'm just like,
it was the moment where they were totally, literally all focusing him, and he was just still alive. It's like, that's the moment where as a team you just know that Damon was like, this fucking game's lost, in it. If we can't possibly kill the jungler, we've caught him like that. Like, how are we gonna get anyone else? Like, it's over in there.
Dude, I thought it was hilarious, and like I was so happy that Suning came and like had these really creative strategies to use. That was basically the only thing that impressed me about them in their finals, besides the ability to catch the game when Damwon threw it directly at them and make it somewhat close.
Well, I mean, that's still a skill ultimately.
That's true. That's true.
Not be able to do that, you know. We've seen 9-man sleeps, you know. Like,
by the way, the phrase 9-man sleep is definitely a triumph of the internet right there. That shit is just hilarious.
That was fire.
What I'm trying to say is that when Suning came in with their own style, like, they looked competitive, right? Like Tank Rengar. I mean, SOFM apparently was an old guard Rengar one trick. You know, who knew? But you could see it, right? This guy knew Rengar through and through, and this is actually something Reckless always pushed me to do. This guy's like, man, if you have like 100 games on a champion that this guy's never even seen in his life, like, let's be real, you're playing on stage. How many times do you play against Rengar, let alone Tank Rengar, let alone any kind of Rengar? Because traditionally the matchup is played with full AD Rengar because your burst is higher than Evelyn, so you jump her, you one-shot her, she ults away, you W, you laugh at her, and you win anyway. But the point is how many times have you played against Rengar in your life? Not many. How many times have you played against Rengar on a stage against a team that has actually practiced playing with Rengar? Which usually it doesn't even matter. Like, a lot of times these pocket picks just show up because they're the perfect situation. Your team doesn't know, but the thing is, your team has you knowing how to pilot the champion, telling them what's going to happen.
Yes.
The enemy team has no one telling them what you're planning, has no one telling them how your champion works. I mean, everyone has an idea, but how exactly, how much damage? And when you're playing against really good players and against really good teams, these calculations that people make in their heads of how much damage you're going to deal, how strong you are, when you can fight, when you can't fight, they make a huge difference. Because if you make like a small miscalculation, like for example, SRFM making fun of pretty much their whole team not dying, that's a game changer, right? Like, your spell, like, maybe you misjudge one of your ultimate spells, right? You use Call the Forge God and it's a complete waste because you thought you could kill him, but you can't because this champion does something that you forgot he could. It's a huge advantage because you've got the player that knows how to play Rengar, and Rengar in this example, but other picks too, right? Which is one of the reasons why I think like Jarvan, Shen, Rengar, Lee Sin, like all these champions can show up. Now Lee Sin is obviously too popular of a champion for this to be an actual pocket pick. Like, he's just too popular, right? But I can imagine that, like, for example, someone like Xerxes, he plays Warwick into Kha'Zix. Like, if it's ever Kha'Zix meta and you play against this guy and he plays Warwick, you're just like, what is happening? Or, like, what does Warwick even do? Like, honestly, like, this champion is a great example of a straight bullshit. Like, honestly, Warwick is one of the biggest bullshitters in the game. And you can see because he's one of the only champions that gets played in the lane with Barrier. Olaf is the same thing, but again, Olaf is a little bit too popular. But Warwick gets played with Barrier because people get baited into his bullshit. Like, they're like... They think they can kill him, but they have no chance. And honestly, I think as a top laner, Warwick can show up in a lot of matchups because of this bullshit factor. Like,
well, he also warps the game because he forces people to buy QSS, which is always annoying.
Sure, that's always nice. I mean, I don't think he forces people because you can remove his CC by CCing him, which is obviously a flaw of his ultimate. But like a champion like Sylas is a great example of a bullshitter. You know, Sylas can just bullshit you because of a certain ultimate that's in the game that you're not used to having in the game. Yes. How many times have you played against Sylas with, I don't know, Jarvan ultimate? You know, all of a sudden, wait, what's happening? Cho'Gath ultimate on Sylas. Wait, his burst now has 600 more true damage than I had expected. Well, that's a bit broken, isn't it? And that's why these champions are like really powerful, but they're not explored as much because
that's going to be one area that's going to be one area no one's really mapped out as well. Because basically, when people pick Sylas, obviously it was in the meta at this world. It's like they pick it just based on like lane matchup or I'm Caps or fucking Knight and I'm going to start. They don't actually do it based on what you're saying, which is like, well, you should basically do it based on what the ults of the enemy team are. Like, what could we get here that would be totally changed the game? So actually, we use their strength against them, and maybe they can't play the game.
It's also, that's why Sylas, I was so excited when Sylas came out, especially to watch.
It's a great concept.
To watch Faker play it, because the reason, you know, the level of creativity and therefore the skill ceiling you can have with Sylas is absolutely crazy, because it's a matter of decision making and knowing objectives and knowing the exact right ult to steal at the exact right time within the game to be used effectively, which makes him a really fun champion to watch. And then on top of that, I mean, you could have any champion, you could have a control mage with that ability, right? But it's an assassin, so it's like even more exciting.
I mean, obviously, it depends on the enemy team comp, because some comps to shut him down, but I agree. And that's why something like Yasuo, I think it has space in any meta. Yasuo can show up in any meta because of the tools he has. Yeah. Some of the tools just don't have counterplay. Like, you match him with Gragas, and all of a sudden, you're an assassin. You match him with, I don't know what, like, I don't know, you can match him with against the enemy team comp, and all of a sudden, he's the best peeler in the game because you can't use any ultimate against him. Like, you can't use half your ults because he just has a win ball. Which is why some of the new champions that have been released are truly, truly, truly disturbing, and I cannot wait to enjoy playing League of Legends against them next year.
Which ones were banned for? Which ones were banned for Worlds? Yone was banned.
Yeah, both Samira and Yone. Thank the Lord. You know, these champions.
By the way, Samira being able to knock away projectiles with a basic ability is the biggest bullshit I've ever, like, it's actually infuriating to watch. Like, it's so stupid. You know, it's not even, the worst thing is it's not even hard to execute. You literally just like press it. She spins around forever, just deflecting everything. I'm like, nobody wants this.
The most sad thing I've seen is that it eats Ornn's ultimate. So, you know, you're Ornn, you want to ult the enemy AD carry. Well, I guess I don't have an ultimate for the rest of the game because whenever I use it on the same screen as Samira, she eats it. It's not even like Braum, you know. Some of this champion, like, I feel like nowadays champions come out with the idea of, let's see how much we can put on them so we can remove it later, maybe.
Yeah, the joke is it's going out like that. That's the name, innit? And right, like, you can't believe this shit. It's like they're trying to one up each other. Like, look, you know that one that for another champion would be an ult. I'm going to make that a basic ability. They can level that at level 1. Like, and then also you're like, I just want someone in the room to at some point just go, but how can that exist in the same game as Garen? That's all I need. That exact sentence needs to be said over and over again. Like, yeah, but then how can Garen ever play? Like, because if you're going to make some of these modern champs, like, you got to rework some of the old. They can't keep some of these champions in the Game Boys. Like, impossible, isn't it? Like, they're going to be so obscure they could never be used in there.
Well, that's the problem though, is that Riot like must realize that if they don't release champions that are at least a little bit broken, if not a lot broken, then they're not going to get any sales or anything like that, or maybe the champions will never actually get play. So they have to intentionally release them overpowered. Now, Samira was like extremely overpowered. I can't remember the last time I saw them hotfix something that quickly, just in terms of how like ridiculous it was.
The nerfs were also extreme.
But I mean, I don't know. I think some of the champs that we've seen designed this last year have been interesting, and I don't mind Yone so much, even though he does basically, I mean, his like Zed ult thing is really stupid.
Thing is, once you played that, that's one of those ones I'm not mad at. Like, I'm not mad like I was at Phelios, because actually it's only the first couple of times you're like, what the hell is it? But then you realize actually this is like, as long as you know what he does and where he's going to, like that's another classic one where it's like, right, then I just wait until he goes back to the spot. Like, it has counterplay. I actually think that's fine. Yeah,
I think the Yone one, for me, I appreciate, so they're kind of in a design corner right now, because once you get to 150 champions, what we've seen them do is they either have to do things like make extremely weird passives that break all the rules of the game to make a new champion, right? Or they have to, and I appreciate that they're doing this, they have to sort of like clone other champions. So they have to be like...
What they did, Monty, is, are you ready? You know Hollywood. You know what everyone hates about Hollywood? You know, you've heard this phrase before, Bwipo, right? The elevator pitch. What it means is if you want to get your movie made in Hollywood, you have to look literally go around, because you probably work as a waiter, and if you see a Hollywood producer, you have to, in 30 seconds, be able to tell him why your movie's sick. And if you're super lucky, it's so unlikely, but maybe you say something amazing. And so the famous thing they always say, the joke, is that you always have to do this whack, like Mad Lib style thing where you go, it's like Terminator meets The Matrix with Arnold Green Gable. And then they're like, but if you get them with the right hook, they're in. So here's what the guy did, right? The cynical fucking guy at Riot goes, you're not going to believe this, guys. New champion idea. They go, let's hear this. Like, they're all thinking they're creatives, you know. One guy's got a fucking beret on going, all right. And then he goes, it's like Yasuo with Echo had a child. And then they go, oh. And then he goes, and then he's employee of the month, of course.
But we'll make it evil and weeb, because our fans love weeb shit, right? It's like, let's make it a Naruto villain because our fans will love it. I think, though, that honestly, that's like...
By the way, I'll give a shout out, actually, because obviously, if people know, the content creator who has killed that genre, he even accidentally, because he's tapped into the fucked up brain frequency of Riot designers, like the most recent champion. It's that guy with the fucking beard. What's his name? I can't remember. He looks like a Viking. Oh, fuck, what's his name? Basically, I've retweeted loads of his videos. He's this guy who does skits like this, Monty. The skit is always that, you know, the Riot.
Yeah, the Viking guy. Yeah.
I'm not lying. The way he makes the Riot game, guys, just like degenerate drug addicts. I cry laughing, man. I think it's really funny. Like, he has nailed that humor. And the problem is, I can't remember what champion it was, but like one of the most recent ones. Oh, what was the one? Oh, it was actually about the fake KDA character being real. About the Seraphine champion. Sorry, the Seraphine. Yeah. He literally sort of predicted that they would make like a fake one that had a social media presence and like was getting people like involved. Dude, he jokingly said that before they even designed the champion.
That's amazing.
Like, so this guy, if you go watch his channel, if you like that sort of humor, all his videos are like that and they're fucking amazing.
And they're all slightly scuffed too, which makes them even funnier. Dude,
and I think it's funnier that it's just him playing all the parts.
Of course.
And even when he smokes the weed, it's like a ridiculous. Like, because obviously he can't smoke real weed in the video, can he? It's actually hilarious.
But what I think is cool.
On the last note about champions.
No, hold on. I want to finish my point about this first, which is that I honestly appreciate the fact that they're starting to create like crossover champions, or they're trying to create like kind of newer versions in Seraphine's case of Sona or whatever. Because honestly, guys, we don't need any more champions. We have enough. There's tons, as Thorin was saying, that we need to rework. Every time you add a new champion, the barrier to entry of playing the game or watching the game gets worse. Like, I don't want to exist, you know, in 50 years and have to deal with 400 fucking champions in this game. You know what I mean? So in a way, like, Yone is not as annoying because I know he's just like a Zed mixed with Yasuo. And like Lilia is not annoying because I know she's kind of like Nico plus Hecarim. And like there's enough visual information there.
It's intuitive, isn't it?
It's more intuitive, which I like. And for example, Set is a very simple champion at his core that is very easy to understand from a playing perspective and a watching perspective. Now, Samira, no, that's some bullshit. But that doesn't fall into this camp, right? Anyway, Bwipo.
The point I was trying to make is that these are actually the more broken champions. Yone is a more broken champion than Samira because his abilities are simple. So he will find a way to break the game way easier than a champion like Samira will, because she needs so many more factors to hit right? Yona is like, what is his skill set? One's like I deal 50-50 magic physical damage on my basic attacks. One is I deal true damage when I go back to my E. And the other is I deal more damage and deal more damage and I deal more damage, right? It's way easier to break that than it is to break Samira, which needs 17 different conditions to even activate her passive. It needs 17 different conditions to pop her ultimate. So even though when she hits right, and this is the Darius syndrome. Everyone remembers Darius. Like, everyone like complains about Darius being broken. But he needs so many conditions to hit right for this champion to pop off. But when it does, you're just like, that wasn't even fair. Like, what Darius just did to my team wasn't even balanced. Like, there's no way that's balanced. But in reality, it's the way to counter it is also very simple. I think Yona is in the same idea compared to someone like Samira, where Samira has to hit all the conditions right, and then she can pop off. And even then, counterplay. But this, you know.
Here's a question for you, Bwipo. Being as Worlds is done, we know the off-season feels like forever. Next year, who knows what team everyone will be on. It could be a totally different meta. Like, in theory, the good thing about League, actually, that you don't get in some of the other games, like Counter-Strike, where the game's too similar, is people can reveal some of the sort of strategy and some of the things they had. Did you actually have any, like, secret pick you never got to pull out of Worlds that you were thinking about? Was there anything ridiculous if you'd have made like the next match or so, or played a specific matchup that you wanted to do a counter and do?
It was in Europe and it was Riven.
Okay.
It was Riven.
How's your Riven?
It was not like, it was never as good as it needed to be, but I played like 150 games or so of Riven, so it's not.
And it just never came up at the right moment to do it.
There was actually a moment. I don't actually remember which game it was. I actually think it might have been. Was it the finals against G2? I think no, it wasn't the finals against G2. It was the first best of 5 playing against G2, and they blind picked Sion, and Hilly was like, "Well, if you're not picking Riven here, you're never picking it." And I'm like,
right,
yeah, could just pick this guy. I think I just picked Gangplank in the end. I'm not sure, but that was an example. Another one is Shen. I never played him on stage, but my Shen was really clean in Chinese soloQ, and when I was playing in scrims, and I feel a bit sad that I didn't play him at Worlds. That was my Worlds.
Could also trick people to think it was jungle, and then you'd have had the flex.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think anybody would have believed that Selfmade was playing.
I don't think it's really champion, to be fair. I will say, yeah, true.
If I was sitting there analyzing that draft, I'd be like, I don't think that's going to Selfmade. And if it is, I'd be like, great, that's awesome for us, right? So,
by the way, was it actually the logic of Fnatic to consciously like give Selfmade these picks, draft for him, like play around him? Like, it wasn't that he was just like, give me this, and then he was just carrying.
It was well, it was a combination of both. Like, ultimately, I think as a team we just agreed that like Selfmade playing selflessly wasn't working out. Like, we didn't agree, like we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of gameplay decision making. Like, for example, I remember having discussions with him about like the way I think he should path when he's playing champions like Volibear and Set, and we disagreed. And ultimately, like from that, I was just like, all right, then I don't want to play these champions, because if you're not going to play those champions in this way, then I don't think they're good at all, right? So let's just agree to play Evelynn, Kha'Zix for like, that was what we started with, and eventually Graves, Nidalee. Like, Graves was always there, but we didn't have much success with him. So we played like 4 or 5 games of Graves already, you know, like this was like week 2 of summer split. Like, we knew that Graves was really strong, right? He even got nerfed once, and he was still like one of the most contested junglers at the World Championship, right? But ultimately, that's what we agreed on. It's like, I was like, look, if you're going to play them this way, I don't really agree with you playing these champions. So I would rather you play these carry champions, and I'll play what you need me to play to make that work. I'll do it the other way around.
Because, mate, there was one thing that people actually forget, because everyone's just focused on, like, they didn't beat top. Like, you got, right, listen, that game's over. We can do the what if, we can do, like, what could happen, what's going. But one thing I think you got to do is, like, isolate, like, some of the performances. And I tell you what, the reason why, for me, that series was amazing wasn't just like, listen, it was amazing that they were crushing the bot lane and Jackie Love was it. Yeah, that'll be the headline. But it's the fact that when I was watching that series, in fact, for the rest of Worlds in the group stage, I was like, dude, when the fuck has a jungler from the West come, plays all the ones he needs to out of the meta junglers, and plays the other ones? Like, if he doesn't want to play Kindred, he doesn't have to. He can play the other shit.
You still play Kha'Zix, apparently.
And was literally, no joke, like, he wasn't far off the Canyons of the world and the people everyone was raving about. Like, it's so exciting, the idea of a Western team had a player who was having that much impact, and it was his meta. Like, as in, it was a carry jungle meta. Like, it felt like anything could happen. That's why it felt like that series could have been won by Fnatic, you know.
Sure, I mean, I can agree. Again, ultimately, we committed to that style, and we got pretty good at it. I mean, ultimately, I have my gripes. You know, I'm a player that, Like, I'm very like I have a lot of criticism about jungle because it's a role I feel like is not explored very well in Western regions. Like I think ultimately, I can't say that I was 100% satisfied with the way we played the role, but he played it really well in his way, and then I think that's what made it exciting for everybody else to watch. Right? Like self-made is self-made. Like that was his style of playing the game, and no one can take that away from him. I think he played really good Worlds because of that, because he played his style. And that's something impressive. Like again, as someone that went to Worlds in my first year, I guess it's self-made second, but the first year he went to Worlds, right? It's not easy to just show up and play your own.
Well,
style.
especially because the jungle position itself was so incredibly stacked at this event. It was the most stacked role by a long shot in terms of the quality of junglers, especially once we got to the playoffs, right? I mean,
yeah, I can agree.
It's pretty crazy to think about the number of excellent kind of world tier.
I mean, the MVP of the tournament ended up being a jungler.
Yeah. So and there haven't been that many carry jungle metas throughout the history of League of Legends. They've been really rare. They only come around like once every few years, really.
Well, last 3 years have been 3 years of carry jungle meta. Like,
you think?
I know. Like, you don't get finals MVP ultimately, if you look at it this way, like 3 years of finals jungle MVP.
He's right, actually, there were the MVPs the last 3 years.
That's true, yeah.
There's a huge difference in the jungle, which you could argue, sure. Or jungle role is a carry role, right? Like Xin Zhao, Camille, are those farming junglers? I wouldn't say so. This was the Season 8 bread and butter, right? Sure, they expanded to other champions, but ultimately Season 8 was very much about carry jungling. Season 9 was it was less about carry jungling.
That one wasn't really carry jungling. That was just he really bodied Jankos really hard. So
yeah, I kind of agree with that.
MVP,
I'm not sure I agree with last year really being the most carry jungle meta. Sure. I think that FPX was carried by the jungler, but also it was more the style with the synergy with Doinb that allowed that to occur.
Absolutely, but I also believe that, like, I mean, I'm trying to think back to Season 9. Like, what was the actual meta, right? Because Lee Sin is what I'm thinking about playing Lee Sin. But exactly, is Kiana... What is that?
Well, Kiana was just broken. Kiana was also played mid, to be fair, and was still broken.
But she's a through and through carry jungler. Like, that is a carry jungler, right? Whether or not it's flexed or not is not really relevant to the point we're trying to make here, I think. Is the idea is just like, Kiana's a character. It builds a warrior in champ. Is what I'm
again, but FPX had to play that way. They weren't going to play another way that wasn't that. You know what I mean? And they won because they were the best at the roaming mid style and playing into the side lanes, right? So,
which is another point I bring is I think every single team that's won Worlds, except actually this year. So actually, the last 2 years that I was watching Worlds, obviously Damwon showed up now and they could play more than one style, but IG and FPX won Worlds playing one style.
Well, they just got hit by the meta, yeah, for sure.
Like they just played one style, but Damwon is an exception, which is kind of ruins my point. But
no, they're an outlier in that regard.
They're just too good. They played.
That's why, to me, this whole thing where, like, listen, I understand fans come from a region, so since they're watching one region, they're cheering for their. I get all that, right? But I think casters pushed that angle too far. Like, the final wasn't LPL versus LCK. Like, that wasn't even the best LPL team before the tournament. Like, that final was Damwon Gaming. Forget everything about LCK because they were nothing like the other LCK teams. Like, what made them amazing and why they won Worlds is that they were distinctly different from the LCK teams. If they were all at the same level as DRX, Genji, that's a totally different tournament. In fact, who the fuck knows who wins that one? Anyone, maybe, in the playoffs. Like, that's wide open. So I feel like people push that regional angle too far because I agree. Like, to me, you have to, if you want to talk about Damwon, have the discussion of like historical great teams because I agree. The lane, especially by the end when people like Ghost are having all these good games, like they could play it however they wanted, essentially.
Yeah. And that was, I think, the issue with Suning coming in because as good as Suning was, and as you can't take away the fact that they beat the other semifinalists that were coming in, right? I think they were the clear-cut number 2 team at this tournament. I do think that we got the top 2 teams in the finals ultimately at this event, which is a rarity when you don't have double elimination, right? We've seen so many of the best matches being in the quarters of the semifinals over the last few years.
Sure.
But that said, we did get, I think, the right matchup in the finals. But they still did it in spite of their shortcomings, in spite of the fact that SOFM would be an amazing jungler in a different meta and was very good at this tournament. And they did their damnedest to, like, do cool shit like the tank Rengar to make up for their deficiencies. But at the end of the day, somebody has to carry that game. And Bin was the only kind of person who was stepping up a lot of the time to do that carry. Occasionally, like, you'd see Angel do it on the Akali. But the problem is like, what happens when you ban out the Akali and you ban out the Jhin from Huanfeng? And I think we saw that.
We never even saw Damwon's draft truly tested.
Yeah, we didn't.
They never had to go as deep as they... No one forced them into like, uncharted territory.
But here's the thing. The biggest stomp was game 4. And guess what Damwon banned? Jax, Akali, and Jhin.
Dude,
and I think
this is where everyone was crying because I was watching one of those core streams. I was watching the LS one, right? And you can imagine LS, like, it's not even like, it's just because they just didn't ban the champions. He's like, bad draft. Like, they fucking... So they would go, why are they banning this? I was like, dude, they're all the champions that the other team has actually been good on in the tournament. Like, if you're playing against Sunning, exactly, you should have learned this isn't about the meta. You should take them off all the shit they're strong on.
I mean,
like, win.
So what happened is like, okay, so we took away their carry champions, right? We've seen Bin come back in these games with the Jax. We've seen him because it's the nature of Jax. Like, you get him into the end game, and it doesn't really matter how badly he did early. If he gets a little gold to him, he can suddenly take over the game, right? So as long as you can hang on, even if they get Dragon Soul, still possible to win with Jax. Anything's possible with Jax, right? And so you take away the Jax, so that option's off the table. You take away the Akali, which Angel is legit super good on, right? And then you take away the Jhin, and I mean, they also banned, I guess, Ezreal. Of course, they banned Camille, but they also banned Ezreal. So basically, Huanfeng can't play safe AD carries. You pick the Caitlyn very early just to lane bully him. You get Barrel's specialty of the Pantheon. And here's what happens. It forces someone on this team to carry. So where do they go? Well, SOFM is playing Graves now. Fucking nobody wants to see that. And like, SOFM isn't capable of carrying this game on a Graves.
I actually disagree. SOFM
oh my god.
He is actually really good carry jungler. I've played against this guy in soloQ and scrims. This guy knows how to play these champions very fucking well. Like, he's actually really good at it. It's just you have to play it against Damwon Gaming, Canyon Showmaker.
Dude, I saw the GLP Nidalee. Get out of here.
I mean, well, okay, he tries too hard to make it his style, but in the end, like, you know, like, if you go look at the past games he played on Nidalee and Graves, like, this guy was farming up 13, 12 CS per minute. You know, like, he knows how to path, he knows how to play the champion, he knows how to execute. He's not a bad Nidalee player or a bad Graves player. It's just
Bwipo. He has to win the world championship with this champion, okay? Like, I get what you're saying,
it's
but
possible
this is
to play
the fucking world's final. And
but
so the question we have to focus on is Suning as a team capable of winning a world championship if they are forced into a position where SOFM is the dude who has to carry versus Canyon? Okay, the answer is no. The answer is no. Like, you can say he's good, and yes, he wouldn't be here if he wasn't good, but it's still not the ideal way to play against Canyon, who is fucking built for this meta and has been playing it forever and has been hard carrying the shit out of this team.
One thing that's actually interesting about the bans is Showmaker's Akali is just straight up better than Angel's. Like, it's not even like, Showmaker on Akali is a different beast. People in whole of LCK were banning Akali first 3 against Damwon because of his Akali. Yeah. To have the presence of mind and also the selflessness to just be like, you know what, this guy needs this champion to win. I will just ban one of my own best in order to win this championship is something that I actually feel like shows how much of a like actual complete team they can be, right? Because you also have to imagine for Nuguri, right? Like, Nuguri's like, he's the guy that's known for shitting on people in lane, right? Like, he makes fun of people. So banning a champion that's completely terrible in lane, like Jax, shows how selfless they were to achieve this actual victory. Because even those 2 bans, like, for example, like, if you go through it, LS is right. Like, why would you ban these champions? And the idea of, like, if you go through the idea, like, how many counters to Jax does Nuguri play that he would just crush him?
Yes.
How good is Showmaker's Akali, and how many counters can play into Akali?
But here's the thing. You talk about knowing the mistakes that you made. That's how we started off this conversation with you. Mm-hmm. If I'm a coach of Damwon and I just watched game 3 where they nearly threw the game at that Baron, despite, I think, having they had Dragon Soul at that time, right? And so I'm sitting in the back and I'm like, so my team is going to maybe make these stupid mistakes that they made in game 1 and game 3, and I need them to be able to win in the late game in case they make these mistakes. Right. You know what I'm banning? fucking Jax.
Yeah, of course, sure. But having the ecosystem in your team that can go through without any, like, no one's, like, I can't imagine anyone was even tilted. Like, I know that I've been on teams where if my coach would even suggest such a ban, one of my players would actually get tilted. You know, like, he would get
offended. Like, what? I can play that bro. Yeah.
Look, how can it be possible that you're thinking that this was the problem? Like, there's no world where this was the problem. And they go on from the like, what are you talking about? It was this and it was that. Like, there's no way. And then, you know, like, I don't feel like that was what's happening. You know, it's probably just the coach being like, look, guys, like, you almost threw. Jackson and Akali looked pretty scary when you did. I'm going to remove them. And that's it. Like, they're going to the next game and they make.
I'll tell you what, that's one area also people didn't credit properly. Where if people forget, when my boy, because if everyone forgets this, Zephyr last year was the coach on SK Telecom, and people were flaming the fuck out of this guy because everyone was like, he's drafted terribly bad. Like, I think the team also had flaws. You know, those players weren't all the best in their positions. So this year, listen, it would be easy to do the classic thing of go, well, he didn't get better Thorin. He just got the best players in a whole bunch of positions. No, because if I'm a coach and I just get the best players and I'm not a good coach, I'm going to do the opposite what you guys say. I'm going to go, right, well, don't worry. Naguri plays the counter that, so I'm giving you your best champion into that. Showmaker, of course, you're on your best champion. No, instead, what he did is he convinced arguably the best solo laners in the world to play fucking Lulu and just garbage shit. Where it's like, this is just going to make it so that it's a rubbish draft, but we're just going to win. We're just going to win. And they can't do anything. That takes a lot to get the buy-in from your players. I mean, as it's fun, it's not fun if you're the solo lane. It's like, mate, if I'm the solo laners, I'm looking at IG, like, dude, give me the champions. Let's see which one of us is going to win the MVP. He was like, why don't we just win the championship and just go home, boys? So props to Zephyr. It all came around in the end.
Absolutely. I think it actually takes a lot of skill as a coach and as players to also set aside your ego, right? Like, if you're Nuguri, like, you have to imagine at his point, his expertise, what he got known as is playing Jace, Kennen, banning a champion that actually can't lane against either of those champions takes selflessness, right?
Yeah,
like, you have to step up and accept that, you know?
I just think it was also I think it was just savvy on the part of the coaching staff to realize what was going on in those games and be like,
of course, all
right, we have to take this away because you guys you're not playing that well. You're nervous. You're throwing these objectives. So we're going to play a very different kind of game where on a long enough timeline, you will be able to win even in the late game. And I thought that was a smart move.
By the way, just in the context of this show, for any really old school fans who remember when the show started, it started in 2014. You know, it was early 2014 when they'd switched to that whack meta in the top lane with Dr. Mundo and everything was Shyvana into all sorts of garbage, right? All I'm going to say is it's not actually in any way satisfying. I don't even give a fuck. I'm not even ever going to say it again. But just for the technicality, Monty, I did tell you Flame had become a world champion.
You did. You were right.
7 years later,
I was going to mention that when you mentioned Flame the first time. I was like, well, now he's a world champion, I guess.
The problem with that, Monty, is that only works for the 5-second joke. If I actually think about it, I'd start crying, man. So we'll just leave that there. Forget that one. It doesn't count. Just like, by the way, you'll notice this is one area I'm very fair, but I also just try not to like get into bullshit narratives. When I did my interview with Soaz, I just said he was a 3-time semi-finalist or better. I didn't put he was a finalist this time. Because it's like, mate, you only played the last game when it was already lost in season. Like, you don't even count that one for yourself. Just make it that you were in the tournament. You sort of went fine. It counts to your past ones. Like, let's not overdo that one. Let's not go into promiscuous territory. You know, let's just keep it legit. Let's have some fun here, boys.
I mean, that was actually something I regret. I regret not having the selflessness of stepping down there. I was not suited stylistically.
Were you so hyped off the semis, you just thought you could do it?
No, I mean, it was also scrim results, right? It's not like there was never a point where like one-on-one I had a problem with laning against the Shy or anything like that, right? Like, you know, the funny thing is I told Dylan Falco exactly what was in my opinion the strongest counter against Urgot and Swain, which are the champions I played most, which was a Predator jungler. I told him, if the enemy team locks in a Predator jungler and ganks top line, I don't really have counterplay. Like, I'll just die. Like, the champions just run me down. Like, Skarner or Gragas, it doesn't matter. They run me down and they just kill me. And I don't know, like, I don't think I have counterplay. I think my champions just die. Well, that happened. But the point I was trying to make is that actually our scrim results against IG were positive with SOAS, and they were negative with me.
Yeah, that's what he said in the interview, basically. Because if people don't get it, The reason why that was actually, listen, I've said this before, mate. I'm obviously a massive fan of Soaz, and I actually think sadly the last few years are really depressing because he's even on those teams, Misfits and Immortal, he was the best part of those teams.
Yes,
Go what any of the wins they got was just him dragging them out of the fire, and then they would just jump right back in again. He's like, fuck it, I can't do the 3 times a game. But here's the point, right? At Season 8 Worlds, because of where you were as a rookie, like you had the beginner's mind. You didn't know you could lose, you know. Where the meta hit you, you had those picks. Like, obviously that Victor basically won the semi-final. Like, they couldn't do anything against that because one of their best players was neutralized. But the problem is this. That final was where the skill set Soaz had built up the last few years of like super smart map play, don't have to win. That would have been the perfect time to do that because that isn't the time to go head to head with the Shy in the final, unfortunately, you know. So I think it's cool that you can admit that, fair enough. Because I'm not saying for the rest of the tournament you would have been better, but that might be a rare case where it would have made sense to.
Absolutely.
But the problem is, listen, if you're in your first proper year in LEC and you're winning, you've done all this much, you're not going to say to the coach, sadly, like, can I just not play the finals? And can we maybe win Worlds without me? And I'm just going to bet, like, that's hard to do, mate. Yeah. I don't know if anyone could do that, mate. So I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
It's something I have to blame myself for, right? Because again, like, it was the first time, like, I know this sounds maybe strange, but it was the first time my mother ever came to watch me play. And
Yikes.
Damn.
I flew her out to Korea to get her to watch me play, right?
That's great.
And I couldn't, like, I don't think in myself, I could find it in myself to not be the guy going into the first game. Like,
yeah.
You know, my dad was there, my brother was there, my mom was there. You know, like, I would have flown in my girlfriend if I could, but that didn't work out. But in the end, like, everyone was there and they were all coming to watch me play. So how could I not play? Was my point of view. When in reality, I shouldn't have. In fact, I even knew that in the scrims we were playing, like, the reason why we were winning was because we were playing Shen. So I was playing Shen.
There you go. Classic.
Dog champion.
Yeah.
Enough.
You know when fans go too ham on the narratives, right? Because they think it's like a feel-good movie and it's all going to work out in the end. That's a perfect example. Because if this was a movie, Bwipo, of course in the final you win. Your mom's like, wow, son, like, I'm so glad you took this career. Like, I love you. And except here's the thing. In real life, the Shy, one of the most arrogant players of all time, who doesn't give a fuck, it seems, about half of his teammates and how the game's played or what the coach wants him to play, just wins and really is like some anime villain, just like, you fucking plebs, pathetic, and then just walk up the shot. You're like, where's the message in this movie? It's like, it's not a movie, guys, it's real life, I'm afraid. Like, that's just real life, innit?
This is a small detail, because when I went on stage, right, they banned Victor immediately, and then Soaz goes on stage, they banned Shen immediately, and that's when I realized, like, that game 3, I was like, fuck. Fuck. I could have done one of two things. One, practice the living shit out of Shen. 2, let Soaz play, because at least if Soaz played the first 2 games, we would have actually been able to see what would happen, you know, like, because ultimately what happened with me was, like, I think our drafts are also not as great. And in the end, I think I don't blame anyone on our team for going with what we did, right? Like, we that was the lineup we ran with for the majority of that playoffs, right? It made sense in the end. It made sense to just play it one more time. The problem was the game 1 that we lost. The problem was the game 1 that we lost, it wasn't like, it was just a draft loss, basically. Everyone just chalked it up like, look, we drafted Urgot, Aurelia, Jhin into Sion. There was no hope that game, right? That's what everyone chalked it up to. So you go into game 2 and you're like, you know what, you know? But then that's the problem. You lose game 2 and you run out of gas.
I think, like, I think the other thing to consider is that there really was no winning in that situation, because if they had started Soaz instead of you and then lost the first 2 games,
they'd all get blamed.
Then they'd just be like, wow, they're so fucking stupid. Bwipo was winning the majority of the playoffs.
There was actually a reason, like a valid reason, which is something that I haven't really spoke about, because I don't want to put this in negative connotation towards Soaz, but you have to consider that if you're playing, like, the thing is, we played me for the majority of the tournament, right?
Right.
So if you have me on the bench and I come in, this is going to actually give you a morale boost, because you're like, this was the lineup we were supposed to be playing.
Sure.
Do you understand? Like,
but if you lose in a 5-game series and you go 2-1 after you come back in,
that's true,
then the narrative is just going to be like,
they should have had him in from
they
game
should have
1,
had him in.
Exactly.
You know, I'm just saying there's not going to be a...
From the outside, that's your perspective.
But from inside, you would have been able to appreciate it. Right.
On my team, like, they actually would have had a morale boost, because they're like, oh, the player that we've ran for the majority of the tournament had success with is coming back. You know, like, I'm coming in. Like, let's say Soaz plays the first 2 games, and then I come in. Like, sure, everyone else in the world might think the same thing, but the actual people that matter, the people's opinions that matter on the swap, which are not everybody else, only the players matter, might feel like, or at least the feeling I would have gotten is like everyone else on my team would have been like, you know what, let's fucking go. Like this was the lineup we were winning with. Our boy that we always win with, he's fucking back. Let's fucking go. And obviously that puts you in a very bad light. Like that's not what I'm trying to do.
No, I get it. It makes sense internally.
What I want people to understand is that me coming in would have had a positive effect. Whereas if you lose with your main lineup that you were running for the majority of Worlds, and then you make a substitution that is not something that that's your backup, right? That's like, well, shit, it's bad, guys, fuck it. That's basically what we did there. It doesn't help.
Here's the thing, though. Listen, if I was in an elimination game and I'm the coach of Fnatic at Worlds, I would sub Swaz in as well, but I'd sub him in instead of Reckless so that you could all just leave the stage in an orderly time.
Okay, whatever, man. The funny thing is, I was a bot laner that year, so you even get
fire as well, mate. In LEC when you were playing those mages, you were like Swain. That was straight fire. That's the real what if, by the way. I know the meta did change, but like when they had that weird funnel meta, dude, that Soaz Bwipo lineup was straight fire because who the fuck's ever played against a team like that? Like, it's like, what are you even supposed to do?
I mean, he was just playing Mundo, leading the like we were all buying into the Goon Squad meme. Like we were all like, we're just playing a Goon Squad. Like we have Soaz playing Mundo, running around like a madman. Like he was tanking turret shots, popping his hour. Like he was making fun of people with his W. Like we were all buying into it. We were like, let's fucking go. Playing Sway. Like, our comps were like Yasuo, Sejuani, Mundo.
That was a dark time. That was a dark time.
Simulator. I know exactly. Draft simulator.
It was great. It was actually just 4 champions, like with no brain, running around just killing everything, and then you had like Hylissang sweating for his life, playing Pyke, trying to kill people.
By the way, in light of the conversation we had at the very beginning of the show when we were doing that little segment before, there's a perfect example of how something can be fun but not high level. Because here's the thing, that was a terrible, in terms of like actual like the concept of League of Legends, that was an abomination. But I tell you what, I loved watching the G2 where they were like, right, our only hope is Perks. We are literally going to funnel everything into him, and he has to literally 1v9 the game. That was fucking amazing where they used to have to do that scene. Like it wasn't good League of Legends. Like even they were like, we really shouldn't be wasting. They even said this to me, like, we shouldn't really be wasting any scrims practicing this. This is such a waste of time. Like it'll never be like this at Worlds. But it's like, how can we not do it when we can win the game? Like, that eternal temptation.
Right. I mean, ultimately, it was an interesting meta, and the idea like funnel never really showed up. Like, I don't even think it's unplayable, to be honest with you. Like, I'm sure it is.
I think you could run it and like surprise somebody and cheat.
What type of comp would you have to run now though to do that?
I mean, still, I think Ytaric would be it. And the thing is like to play something like Ytaric, you'd have to be exceptional at champion that. Well, you have no reason to be exceptional at, right? There's one player in the history of League of Legends that has played Mastery since his rework, and I'm pretty sure it was because he got bored of playing all the other meta champs, which is Faker.
Yes.
He got bored of making fun of people on every other meta champ, so he's like, fuck it, I'll play mid-Yi with Blade of the Ruined King and make fun of them that way. Like, why not? At that point, why not? I think, coming back to the substitution, when I mentioned Faker, like, again, like, a World Championship winning team is a team that's willing to place Easy Hoon over Faker. It's that simple, right? I mean, I actually don't remember if Easy Hoon got to play at Worlds.
He didn't play by Worlds. No, they won the spring by using Easy Hoon, yeah.
Yeah, but here's the issue is that with a scenario that I talked about where Easy Hoon played the first 2 games of the MSI final and then Faker was like subbed in after that, right?
That's the what if.
That's the what if, because it is that exact scenario where T1 goes down 0-2, Faker comes in, and then Faker goes 2-1, but they lose the series.
Put it this way, that's the one where everyone was like, well, Monty, you're going to have to give it up to the LPL. It's like, nope, technicality, Faker was up 2-1, that doesn't count. It's like, damn it, not again.
True. I mean, obviously that's the way you look at it. But the idea is I think if you have like a main lineup and like a secondary lineup, I think the idea, or like you have like what you want to come into the tournament with, but you feel like one of your players is stylistically better suited. I think you should probably just like use one game on that, right? Because like I said, if you lose 2 games in a best of 5, you're really with your back against the wall. And I do say that after losing like my 3rd reverse sweep in 2 years.
You've had a few, mate. I've got a question.
I've been on the receiving end, but
when you were at that moment in summer where obviously the weird thing about season 10 is we've gone back to the logic of like season 4 and season 3, where summer playoffs just decides who makes worlds. It doesn't matter. You could have won spring. I mean, obviously you were like still a top team. You finished second. But the point is, when you were at that moment where Schalke was doing that miracle run, but this is the part people forget. Every fan was like, this is so cool. They're going to do the miracle run. If you're Fnatic, that your life is in their hands, and you know every miracle run ends at some point in time. So if they fuck this up, XL's in the playoffs, we're not, like that. Your life literally was in their palm, right? Was there ever any moment in those weeks where it was just going so badly, you were losing all the team? Did you ever actually think, fuck, is this it? Is this like the end of this Fnatic lineup? Because obviously from there to almost making semis is, I mean, that's night and day, isn't it? It's almost like it felt like a year had passed or something.
I mean, there was a point where we had to accept the possibility, right? That much was a fact. We had to accept that it's possible that might happen. But we never, like, I at least never got to a point where I was like so deep down, because ultimately, I mean, I had a talk with Reckless actually about this very topic. I was talking to Reckless, and he was like, the conclusion we both came to is, look, you have to beat, I don't even remember who we had to beat, but it was like, it wasn't anything like extreme, you know.
You had a fairly easy ending week in a couple of weeks, I think.
All I remember is like once we made playoffs, but it was the same logic before playoffs. It's like, if I told you last year or even last split, you have to beat like Mad Lions, Rogue, SK, Schalke, and these teams to get into playoffs, like you wouldn't even lost a second of sleep. Like we would probably be laughing our asses off at this point. So instead of like looking at all the issues we have as a team, just like try to remember how good of a situation we're in is what our conclusion was. And I think that talk helped me a lot, actually. Talking with Reckless about that, because that actually helped me like realize the situation we were actually in, not the situation I was in my head, you know, because in my head it was like, oh, we've got this issue and we've got that issue and this and there's that, and like everything's going wrong. But in reality, it was just like, you know what, it really wasn't so bad. Like we had to beat teams that we made fun of pretty much since joining the LEC. You know, like since I joined the LEC, these were teams that were an afterthought, you know. That's obviously very cocky thing to say, but that's just the reality of the situation, right? Like you play on a lineup with Reckless and Hylissang, and I'm very happy that they got.
Yeah, but I've got a quote for you. You're gonna like Bwipo, right? One of the most legendary trash talkers in basketball was Larry Bird. This guy who played for the Boston Celtics in the 1980s, right? And they used to have a saying about Larry Bird because he was so good at trash talk, right? As in, he used to do the crazy shit where he would tell you. The guy defending him, like, by the way, my coach is going to get the ball to me. I'm going to take it at the top. When you try to defend me, I'm just going to hit it in your face. And then the guy would think, well, there's no way he's going to do that because why would he tell me? And then they would just do it to him, right? And then after he did it, he'd just sort of walk away like, see ya. You know? And so here's the thing, though. Someone once said, like, oh, yeah, he's you know, it's like so cocky and arrogant the way he does that. And the guy just said, like, it isn't trash talk if you can back it up.
True.
Like you just said there. It's not trash talk, but you did it. So...
I mean,
what can they say?
You know, for the future.
I know, but in that case, like, mate, you made good on it, so it's fine to think that's the case. Yeah,
I mean, I believe in the future it'll be the same, right? Like that's the idea, at least. Like moving on into 2021, that's the idea, you know. Like we will have our eyes on G2 and we will play for the championship, and half of the LEC is an afterthought. I mean, it's a shame, right? Because I believe,
not really. That's just how it works in sports, like.
Sure, I mean, it's a shame that like we have so few. Like, I believe honestly, and this is the thing. Like, my honest opinion is that COVID had a huge impact on how teams perform.
It made more parity, didn't it, in the league?
I mean, it made a huge difference. Like, I think if Worlds didn't show it, like prove it to people, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't want to make the hot take.
I know.
Take to make, but like if Worlds didn't like ring some people's bells about certain teams, then I don't know what will. But
well, I think the thing about Mad Lions in particular, too, is that it's easy to say that in retrospect because they bombed out during play-ins, right? But I think that same team, if that team had gotten a year's worth of LAN experience, that might not have happened, right? I think
the best thing that could have happened to them was what they actually said in the interviews at the beginning of the year, which was they even said, listen, we're not expecting in Spring Split we're actually going to challenge for the title. We just want to be like a good team that masters our style, gets the players online, maybe make the playoffs, and then summer splits where we want to experiment, we want to learn more stuff. So actually, in some ways, the worst thing that happened to them is we went online, they looked like they were maybe even going to win the playoffs. It was looking awesome. Then in the summer, they're leading. They never got like the massive failure. Like if they'd have basically made the playoffs in spring and just gotten their ass spanked by anyone, someone even just with veterans like Origin or something, if they just beat them out, that would be like, right, this is where we learn the hard lessons. Now in summer like that's the point, yeah, because once they got to Worlds, it's like you don't want your moment of you don't want the slap in the face and the cold water to come at Worlds. Dude, we have to win these games. Yeah,
it's also that LAN experience is very different, Bwipo, as you know, and
the learning
having
curve's crazy.
4 rookies on a team that got no LAN experience, especially in playoffs in a best of 5 series in a pressure situation. It sucks. I think, though, that they wouldn't have done as badly had they had that experience previously. I think they would have done worse previously, but maybe better at Worlds. Maybe they wouldn't have gotten to Worlds because they would have been worse in those situations previously.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, would they have beat a team like Schalke, which, again, like, sure, like, you can say, like, Abadage, Gilius, they've been in the scene for quite a few years now. Like, sure, Abadage doesn't, like, you might not think it, but the guy's been in the scene for how long now? Like, it's been quite a while from what I remember. Like, I think he's been playing for at least 2 years now. Like same as Selfmade, I think 2 years. Like you have Oduamne, which he's got double the years I have.
Super vet, yeah.
He's got double the years I have. Who was their bot lane again? Oh, sure, their bot lane was pretty rookie, but ultimately, I think that they had way more veteran players behind that, and I think that playing on the stage would have benefited Schalke in the same way that the teams that played against.
Dude, I'll tell you the team that got wrecked the most, in my opinion, by going online and then this scenario where anyone could beat anyone is Origin. Like, listen, Origin wouldn't have won. They weren't good enough. They had no chance to win in summer. But I tell you what, there's no universe they aren't making playoffs with those players. Yeah. If we're on LAN, those players at least making playoffs. Like, come on, mate, just the laners alone would get you there. It wouldn't matter. Like, they're a team where it's like the fact everyone else had all that, like the rookies never got punished. Like that, you know what I mean? I think that's an easy point to make, to be fair.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just something like I don't feel like a lot of people are talking about, and it makes sense why they don't. But...
Like I don't put it this way.
We talk about it a lot.
I don't consider them the 10th best team. Like when they were ranked 10th, it's like they weren't the 10th best. It's like they were the 10th in very weird circumstances,
Yeah, that's basically the point. It's just not something I see other people talk about. Let me put it that
way.
Yeah.
Well, I think other people don't have the same experience across esports that Thor and I have about what the difference across multiple esports between online and LAN play looks like for an extended period of time. And we can also remember before there was reliable LAN play and most events were happening online. So, and the difference that happened when esports transitioned into majority LAN play. Like, I was casting tournaments when League of Legends before LCS existed, where the majority of the play was online. So I can even tell you about that in League, right?
Right. I mean, it's a huge difference, and it's it's just not something that I feel like people accounted for when Mad Lions did bomb out, right? Like, like not as much as there should have been talk about it, right? Like ultimately, I think that was their biggest flaw as a team, right? It's just you saw that. I think their players are pretty good, Like I think. The reason why Humanoid was like the only real performer on their team was exactly this.
Yes. Yeah. Put it this way, that's the team where I get why during the year you didn't make the points, right? Because the problem is, under the circumstances where none of us chose this to happen, and there's a world where maybe we just don't even have esports that year, which is the nightmare scenario, we were all going the other way. We were going, look, let's just at least be happy there is LCS. Let's at least be happy there is going to be like, fuck, let's just buy in. Let's just pretend for now, because we have to do this in Counter-Strike where every match was online. For the first few months, we were all like, look, let's just pretend this is real. Let's pretend this is the most important matches. But I will say, like, especially because we don't have a major in CSGO, it had to be cancelled, sadly, because it was going to be held in Brazil. Basically, once everyone realized, fuck, it's just going to be these online games that like aren't the same. They aren't the same. Like the veteran can't show his skills. Like the rookie doesn't get punished. People quickly realized, like, this, if unfortunately, if I contrasted what it would have been, this isn't the same. It isn't. And so people didn't want to kill the hype in LEC. They didn't want to kill the narrative. But it's like, now we're past the year, we can look back and be real and be like, come on, guys, things would have been different. Now, what's sad, by the way,
we were saying that at the time about Mad Lions, even in spring. Even in spring, we were saying like, if this was LAN, would Mad Lions really have beaten G2 in this best of 5? And we're like, no. Like,
yeah,
looking at the
also
quality
don't
of
blame
these
them
games.
for not getting it because they didn't know what they didn't know. Like Mac literally came on one of our shows and told me, like, well, you can't tell me that my players would, you know, collapse on stage if it was like a massive. And I was like, yeah, because you've never been there, mate. Like, I'm not saying it like maybe you get lucky and they make it, but like, put it this way, I'll tell you the odds aren't great, mate. Like, I'll tell you from just esports history. So in that scenario, put it this way, I'll say the same thing that I've been saying the whole time in Counter-Strike with all these online tournaments. The real victim isn't actually, believe it or not, the team like Origin, where they weren't going to win, but they wouldn't have been as bad. And it's like they were slightly exaggerated. The real team I feel sorry for is, let's say, pick Rogue or Mad Lions, whichever one you want. One of these teams, maybe one of them actually would have been really good even online. Maybe one of them would have threatened for the title, but we'll now never know. And so sadly, they'll get lumped in with the online thing and people will forget it. So for all we know, maybe one of them was actually super legit and would have been in position. But you have to put the context of the situation, unfortunately.
I mean, that's just the story of like, this is the same for me, right? My context is if I make a comment on that, I'm a salty motherfucker if I lose.
Yeah, of course.
I can't say anything because if I lose, that's it, you know? Like, my Bwipo is cancelled. So, yeah. Which is why I didn't, right? Because I didn't want people to feel like I was salty, you know? Like, ultimately, their performances are as valid as the next, you know? Like, they did their best, and they were good teams, all of them.
Well, thank God we actually got LAN for Worlds though, because at least you know I tweeted about this too. I was like, at least we won't have to put an asterisk on the fucking World Championship this year because we actually got it on LAN, which is better than any other esport right now. So, you know,
I'm super happy with what Riot performed for us. You know, like in the end, like they stepped up big time. They made all of this possible, and like even in quarantine, like honestly, like I was surprised by how comfortable it really was, you know, like it was really exceptional what Riot managed to pull off this year, and I'm very happy that I got to perform at Worlds, like all things considered. Super happy. Big props to Riot Games for getting that sorted.
And you know the best part, Thorin, is that we don't have any asterisks or people who can complain about TSM 06ing in groups either. So that
exactly. That was pure. That was everything. Listen, understand TSM fans. I went like into the future like Doctor Strange, and I saw every possible outcome, and in all of them, TSM goes 0-6. I'm sorry, they just do. You know.
Bwipo, did you think TSM was going to have that poor of a performance from scrimming them or playing around with the other teams at Worlds?
We never scrim them because basically how it works at Worlds is like you get to choose who you scrim for the first few days. So like how it works is like you have like 2 weeks of boot camp. So in our case, this was quarantine, right? Like a week and a half of quarantine, and then by week 2 of quarantine, the groups are decided. So obviously we didn't book TSM in the first 2 weeks for whatever reason. So
I couldn't think of any reason you would. So I'm
just like, guys, we got a choice. We can play down one top JDG or TSM. Like
exactly.
JDG. So, what about TSM? I said JDG. Well, whatever. You know, maybe next time. You know what? We'll get you next time, Path. Next time, bro. You keep messaging.
So I mean, in the end, I didn't expect them to get 0 wins. You know, like for example, their first game draft, like they came into the tournament banning Gangplank and Shen. It was like, wow. You know, like I didn't expect that. I honestly didn't. I couldn't have expected them to prioritize banning those champions. To be honest with you. Sure, like maybe coming into the tournament, they thought that was our read on the meta, and they were scared of those champions because they were a top-centric team. But ultimately, the fact that the veteranship on that lineup, in Double Lift, for example, like didn't feel comfortable to step up and play a bot-centric style is why I'm not surprised they got 0 wins. You know, like that's what I would expect from at this point should have been franchise player if he didn't run off the liquid for 2 years.
Yes.
That's what I would expect, right? Like, just like, for example, Reckless in this meta just straight up played 2 years, like he straight up stepped the fuck up, right? Like Reckless and Hillsang, like even though we were playing a jungle focused meta where we were playing jungle carry only, in the end, we just, like, my bottom lane said fuck all that and just went to town on Jackie-Love, you know? Like, they didn't give a shit.
You know, the ultimate irony that Western fans won't understand is that the reason why Western fans always go, but Jackie-Love was sick, look how good he was in IG, because what they don't get is that the team, obviously, when the Shy and Rookie were in good form, played through the solo lanes, and Ning basically was like the fucking butler of the Shy, right? So what they don't get is the genius of Jackie-Love and why he thinks he's so good is because they would have like ultimate map pressure because he would just play it up as though he was in RNG, but he didn't have the support. So what happened is Reckless and Hillsang literally did that to him. They were like, oh, no, our team isn't playing through the lane, but we're just going to be up on you all the time. We're going to act as though that is the case. And by the way, if you send your junglers to the bottom, we're playing through top anyway, so who gives a fuck?
Yeah, but that's exactly what I mean. Like our bot lane stepped up.
Yeah, that was
like,
gangster.
Yeah.
Our bot, like even though like,
Respect.
that wasn't even our strat, right? Like our strat was all about self-made.
Oh, they just did it of their own accord.
Exactly. It was
Right.
all 2v2 basically. And that's,
That's
why
cool.
like, that's what I expected from TSM to at least get one, especially in a best of one, right? Like TSM comes in, plays
Sure.
Camille every game, and then week 2 you come in, all of a sudden you're drafting Zyrakan, like fuck knows, I'll give you an example, and then like no team's gonna be really actually prepared for that, right? And that's why I expected at least one win, maybe 2. Like again, you can throw a curveball. Day one, like week 2, game 1, you come in, you play Zyrakan or whatever it is that your bottom lane agrees is going to be your focus, and then you go into the next best of one, and you suddenly go back to playing. I don't know what. I think that's what they tried to achieve when they locked in LeBlanc, for example. Like I think that was the logic. Sure, it didn't quite. It wasn't as much of as a resounding success as they would have wanted, but I believe that was the reasoning why they did that. Because in the end, they needed someone to step up, and Bjergsen was like, you know what, let's play Shen LeBlanc, and I'll see what I can do. It wasn't a success, and that's why they ended up with 0 wins. But I think Bjergsen willing to do that was what you actually want from your franchise player. Like, yeah. What else? You've got your life
much better than the Zillion, I'll tell you.
I don't remember. They didn't play the LeBlanc. Actually, they didn't even play the LeBlanc thing in there. Like they were already eliminated. So maybe I'm wrong. It was just surprising to me that Broken Blade and Spica were start to finish the
best players.
The best players.
Not even the best players. The players that had to be the best.
Yes.
Like you have the best players, and you have the players that have to be the best.
Yes,
like,
yes.
TSM forced Spica and Broken Blade to show up because of their drafts, right? Like they were drafting Camille every game, especially against us. Like I was playing against Camille 2 games in a row. Like if Broken Blade doesn't step up, and like they even played the same matchup, like
which was a permaban basically in the playoffs as well. So if you can't play a champ, if you get a couple shots at a champ that's permabanned at Worlds, you should be able to put up some numbers and get some wins on it.
Sure, but they're also your rookies, right? So is that what you want to expect from your rookie? Like, is that what you want? Like, do you want to put that responsibility on Broken Blade and Spica rather than Doublelift and Bjergsen is what I'm asking?
Well, I wasn't a fan of that. Like, for example, I said this in my video. The saddest thing for me is, in the context of the expectations, who he was playing in that group and the jungle meta, Spica actually did a very good job. He played all the meta champions and he did a pretty good job. In fact, his team sometimes just didn't even help him. But the point is, what Bwipo was saying is, why am I making it so the only player, like Doublelift doesn't have to play the way he should, Bjergsen doesn't have to play the meta at all for mid lane, but Spica, the rookie, has to play all the chat. And then, what, I'm just going to go on and Spica, do what Canyon and Selfmade and the rest to do and just carry the whole tournament. Like, it's not going to, that's ridiculous. The expectation is ridiculous. I'm amazed he held up. What a G.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. Is like, I mean, obviously Bjergsen just decided, well, I'm not going to be the franchise player, so.
Well, he literally decided that now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just surprising to me. I actually thought he was.
No, it's like it actually sucks for LCS as a region to not have Bjergsen in there, because you're basically saying that one of, if not the top, mid laner, the most important position in the region, in order to replace Bjergsen, basically Bjergsen has to be such a good coach compared to the average coach in the region. Like, if he's not making up that difference that he had in the mid lane, we're still going to see a net, loss in the TSM's play, and then a net loss in the region's ability to compete. Like, it's weird to have a guy who can still perform at among the best players in his region decide to be a coach, because it's almost like resetting. It's not that he's going back to zero, but he doesn't have coaching experience. So is he really going to be that much better of a coach? Maybe in the long run, sure. I could believe that about Bjergsen. But I think in the short term, it's pretty bad for TSM.
I mean, it depends, right? Like, I don't know him that well. I've only spoke to him once, and from the time I spoke to him, like, I'll be honest, like he seemed like a very intelligent person that was like thinking about a lot of things that I would want a coach to think about. So
sure, no, I agree. I think he can be, but it's still it's not just the gameplay stuff.
Give us an example. What do you mean? What comes to mind of like the sort of way his mind worked, or the level he was thinking on? Give us an example.
Just like general game concepts. It's just something that I don't see a lot of people talking about. And what I mean by general game concepts is like, you know how people when you analyze chess isn't about the pieces. Chess, like, it's not only about the pieces. It's about how you approach the game, who approaches the game, why they do what. Like, there's more to it than at least
stylistic matchups, better game strategies, things like this.
Just like, I'll give you an example, right? I'm gonna try and think of something that's relevant, that is easy to understand. Because I have something about jungling. For example, for jungling, right? You have your jungler, and this is something I disagreed with Selfmade, right? So in my ideal world where you play jungle, let's say you have 2 kills, and you're in a position where you take, you've done your full clear, you have 28 CS, and you're gonna take the second crab because you just double killed enemy mid jungle, right? In my opinion, rather than going for your second full clear, which is possible because of how the game works, so you start at your red buff. You start at red buff, you do red buff, golems, raptors, wolves, blue, gromp, bot crab, go mid, get a double kill. Take the top crab, and then you do your full clear again.
Mm-hmm.
As a general concept, I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong to go for another full clear there. Because, in my opinion, if you go for another full clear, you are not able to respond to what the enemy team wants to do. Sure, you will be very strong when you come off base after your second full clear, but you will be either way. Even with just the double.
So you want to just do like a recall back, get an item, come back.
Yeah, because you're not applying pressure. Because here, even if you send the enemy mid and jungle back to base by killing them, they still come out with items out of that. And if you're spending your entire time clearing, then if they make an aggressive play onto like the dragon, then you're going to be, relatively speaking, probably somewhat
leaving it up a
underpowered.
bit or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll give it up, right? And it's not necessarily dragon. It's also laning phase. Like, it's also
the
way the game is played. And
I see what you mean then, because if people are missing, like, basically the premise there is it's not even about what the individual, like in soloQ, obviously you would just do what you said, like it makes sense. But the premise there is like that's sort of a counterintuitive concept until you understand entirely how it works, like the impact on the enemy team, your team, what you can do. Like it's not about how do you Selfmade just look like he's 1v9 and like.
Yeah, and the thing is like you have the bigger power spike if you're doing what Bwipo's talking about, but you also, instead of applying more pressure to your opponent and winning the game based off of objectives that you could take, you're basically giving them a window to be active on the map, right? Whereas you could give them no window to be active on the map and just choke them out and snowball more efficiently. Instead of, it's kind of like trying to unnecessarily dunk on someone, right?
I mean, the point is that there's times where it's worth it. There's times where it's not. The point I'm trying to make is this is the logical way of thinking about this. This is the first concept you would make. The second is if you base and you don't full clear and you come out with less items than you would in your full clear, doesn't matter. What I'm asking you is that after you full clear and you buy your extra power spike,
it's not downside basically, yeah.
Is that relevant? Is that actually relevant? Like, is the power
it's potential energy, basically. In the physics terms,
I'm not smart enough for that.
He's stored up a bunch of potential energy, but it's just sitting there not actually being realized, right? He still has to recall at some point in order for that to mean anything.
Perhaps.
It's actually, by the way,
how much energy do you actually need is what the question should be.
Yes.
Do you need another full clear to reach the energy level that you need to win the game, or are you already in a position that you're winning the game? And the only thing you need to do now is just recall and finish the game.
Yes.
It's
actually why one of my biggest pet peeves when I watch casters is whenever I can notice an angle that they miss, that's like, bro, you're supposed to be like 10 levels ahead of me in understanding the game. So the classic one is when they keep talking about the gold lead as though the gold league automatically translates to stats. But in League of Legends, stats come from items. And if we didn't base after we got the gold lead, we don't have a gold lead. So if their comp is slightly better in the team fight, they are not ahead.
It would
they
be
are
very
ahead when they can spend the money.
It would actually be very good to have a spent
great,
gold underneath the real gold.
Do you know the ultimate irony of all? The worst feature of the UI, the HUD in Counter-Strike, is because they just had like an extra area with nothing to put in there. They put in a thing in Counter-Strike called equipment value of both teams.
Yes,
that means nothing in Counter-Strike. You already can see the weapons they have. You know how much money they have. In League of Legends, it would be good. That would actually be the one game it would apply to, Monty. What I want to know is not how much gold you have, is how much gold did you spread across the team in items? That's what I want. That would be an amazing stat to have.
I agree. 100%.
And you could even track it as like, here's the power spikes that are going to hit. Look, when they hit this,
you could also
amazing.
You could track how much value every level gives on a champion and like actually calculate how much value an actual champion is bringing, because a lot of gold value is lost in levels, right? Like,
yes.
If you see a level 16 champion, you don't think this guy is 10k gold up on someone that's level 1.
It also would change with item, like basically item potential gold values. So like if your tier transforms into something, right? If your tier item transforms, then that's a power spike that's not actually presented in terms of gold, because it doesn't change the cost of the item. It just changed the value, the gold value of the stats on the item.
I agree. Ultimately, these are all interesting topics, but
Yeah.
like I mentioned, like this is something that I talked to Bjergsen about, and that's what I realized. Like this person is actually very smart about this, and he's willing to be wrong about it, which is another thing that's really important in my opinion in League of Legends. Is you need to have the mindset of this guy could be bringing me something that I'm wrong about, because when you look at strategic games like League of Legends, they've been figured out. You know, like I know it's a huge meme in Fnatic, but I remember in 2018, Joey Youngbuck brought the art of war to League of Legends. He wanted to integrate some concepts from the art of war.
Well, what a fucking poser this guy is anyway.
Stealing Monty's entire swag. Bwipo's too young to know this. Yeah, when Monty was the coach in season 4, he famously brought it on this like reality series episode and brought it to Doublelift, the Art of War. And the joke is, I'm sure Doublelift just used it as like a CD coaster or some shit like that.
So the dumb thing that happened was it wasn't CLG. So I brought copies of the Art of War to have like a couple-hour conversation just about general concepts and how they applied to League of Legends. It wasn't like it was the foundation of a coaching strategy, right? What was stupid is that Riot themselves came to the house to film, and then they saw it, and they were like, what is this? And they like focused on it, and they made it like this whole thing, and I was like, no, you know, we had a conversation, it's fine, we were just talking about a few points. We did it one time, and then all of a sudden people were like, Monty's teaching them the Art of War. It got blown like insanely out of proportion. It was very annoying, actually.
Well, I mean, in our team, it was practically that. He would bring like a different point from the Art of War every week.
No, they're just good for starting conversations.
Yeah, well, he was actually going further than like Joy was pushing it, like as in like he wanted us to like actually relate to these concepts.
Okay.
So it was something that he pushed a bit more.
Give us some examples.
It's hard to remember. It's actually very hard to remember. But I know a meme that's like that kept around was the word hobbling. Like if you hobble your soldiers, it was something about the other word about hobbling your soldiers, that it's like, I don't exactly remember, but it was basically worse to get to do something with your, like making them march at a ridiculous distance is worse than taking what you can get, is the idea that I got from it. Again, it's really like it's 3 years ago.
You're doing a terrible job of explaining this.
Yes. And
so one thing, like for example, that you know Sun Tzu stresses very heavily in the Art of War is the idea that you do not take battles unless you've already won, right? And so that was something that I spoke a lot to, and does speak to League of Legends, because you want to accrue objective advantages to the degree that you have a guaranteed victory by the time you actually fight, or you're maximizing your chances in that fight. So it's just a different way to think about tactics. And a lot of it is irrelevant because a lot of it's like weird shit about army supply lines that has nothing to do. But in terms of battlefield tactics, the only thing, like the thing that it's useful for is putting players in a state of mind where they're trying to understand how to play patiently, or how to think about
what the other team's trying to do,
and what the other team's trying to do, and their objectives, and just think about it on a more strategic level.
Like, put it this way, we've all seen games. I mean, listen, Ellis is the king of this. We all know the games where he's watching, and the whole reason he mouths isn't even that the team that's winning loses. It's that they lose when they don't know, they win, but by a smallest margin, by fighting when the other team couldn't do anything to them, had no engage, and they were unscaling champions and would like, and in his mind, the reason he will meld is because it's like, why did you even give them a chance at winning that? When in like 5 minutes more, it's 90% you win. Like that's like a classic example of it, because in that scenario, the player again plays like, well, I'm just playing a champion and I'm doing what I can do. And it's like, no, if you would have kept in your mind the whole time. I used to tell you the classic one for me was in NA. They always did this. I'd probably do it now, to be fair, but they used to be so bad for this back in the day. The team that didn't have to actually take the Baron back when that wasn't a thing you had to take, but could use it to Baron bait, would always eventually start hitting it and go, fuck, it is getting low though. Maybe we'll just go for this anyway. It's like, no, the whole point of you doing that was to make them have to fight you. And if they didn't fight you, you backed off and you were still leading. But they were always like, fuck it, let's just go for it now. And it's like, why would you even open that door if you were the team that's winning? You know, like examples like that. Basically, it's actually not tactics, it's strategy. It's the overarching concept. How you apply it individually is going to be specific to League of Legends. Obviously, that doesn't, like you say, that's irrelevant to how a Chinese army fought without guns, you know, something like that.
Yeah. So there's some high level concepts that I think that are just good starting points for conversation. We do have to wrap this up eventually, but before we do, I want to talk about two concepts, or two rumored transactions. Okay. And the first one that I want to talk about is Alphari potentially going to TL, because as his opponent in the top lane. You're very familiar with him. I think it's a damn shame that he might be leaving LEC entirely, because I would love to see him on a team like Rogue or Mad Lions or somewhere that could really present more competitors for the region. And I don't want him to kind of wither away and die in LCS. So what are your thoughts on Alphari as a player and this potential rumored move?
So my thoughts on Alphari as a player is he's really, really good individually at playing laning phase and playing the game the way you're supposed to, right? Like playing by the book, playing the rules. You stay in lane, you pick your matchup. He plays the matchup the way you're supposed to play it. Like whether that's a bad match, I know he's not, like he doesn't always play bad matchups. When he does, he's very proficient at them too. So like when he plays Ornn into a bad matchup, he's very good at minimizing the losses, and which is why his laning stats are always good. It's not only because he plays like a very good Kennen or he plays Kennen and then gets a lane advantage, it's also because he plays Ornn and doesn't lose too much. So both sides of the coin, he plays very well. So on an individual level, he's a really good player. I think that my biggest gripe with Alphari is that he never actually breaks the rules. Like, you go in the minute 25 and he'll still be playing the game. Like, for example, when I play against him and why I've usually had the better of him, when it comes into a team game at least, is because generally speaking, actually I've avoided Alphari for the majority of my career now that I think about it. In best of fives at least. He's like, generally speaking, like...
Well, Alphari's been avoiding playoffs for a long time, so to be fair, you haven't had that many opportunities, right?
True. But ultimately, he plays the lane and like he plays the game from his perspective through and through, which is why I don't think if he goes to an A, he'll deteriorate at all, because he's a very like self-centered player that will make sure that his position is great before he enters the game. Like the game can like four of his other players could be crashing and burning, which is what was happening last split. And he would not like invest his teleport or leave his lane unless it was something that he was able to do for free. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he's selfish, is what you're saying.
In a good way, though.
The thing is he does accrue advantages when he's being selfish. So it's not like he's being selfish for fun, you know, like he's getting something done, but he's not selfless when he needs to be. Like he has no choice other than to be selfless because the game is lost anyway, which is a point where you obviously never want to be in, but he's been in that position multiple times over the years. God knows how, you know, like, you know, the 2 years in OG has it been 3 now? I think 2 years in OG.
2, yeah.
It's been like that pretty much every split for him. And that's never changed, or at least I haven't seen it change as much as I would like. That said, again, he is still a really good individual player, and he is very focused on that, which is exactly why I think he'll have a great showing in NA, because he's just going to make fun of the NA top laners that aren't putting that much effort in. Like, you know, I don't put like a huge amount of effort in my 1v1 laning, and I can feel it when I lane against Alphari. You know, like when I lane against him, like, he puts a lot of pressure on me to play my matchup very well. And me and Wunder might get away with it, you know, like Wunder obviously known for not grinding out the game. He gets away with it too, right? But ultimately, I think NA is going to get a reality check if they have to lane against this guy every game. I'll tell you that much. That's for fucking sure. Like,
I mean, I'm not saying it's not good for LCS. I just want him to compete on a good team and have a chance to do well in international competition, which I just don't think is possible in North America because I think people's skill atrophies due to the solo queue.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that's like a really, like, don't get me wrong, I think you can get better at the game by playing solo queue. I don't think you can get worse at the game unless you want to be. Like, if you don't have the discipline to force yourself to keep your good habits, well, I would recommend opening.
I don't know. I think there's only so much you can do when people aren't challenging you whatsoever, and you're so much ahead of everybody in your region.
I actually 100% disagree with that. I know what the right line of play is right now. If you ask me, like, I can walk you through the right line of play of a VOD. I don't have to play the game. I don't have to be challenged to tell you what the right line of play is. And I would hope that...
Here's the example.
I think from a mechanical perspective, though, it's a little bit different.
Here's the analogy. It's like if you go to prison, right? But it's not a prison that has one of those gyms where you can go and use stuff. Like, if people don't know, if you really put your mind to it and you know how to do it, you can get jacked with just like a towel and a chair. You can do every exercise you need. But the problem is you're going to have to do 1 million more reps. You're going to have to really want it. You're going to have to keep motivated. It's a lot easier to just get up, go do half an hour in the gym with the ultimate resistance weight, have someone tell you, watch a video. But the point is, if you really, really want it, you could stay like that. So that's why, in my opinion, Jensen's never been bad. Someday is always very good. There are players who can add it. I would even say Bang, Core, JJ. These players all kept like a very consistent level because they're outliers in that sense. Like, I agree, generally they wouldn't do it. That's why I actually like this move in a way. Because first of all, I actually think in Europe he was always going to be wasted because at the moment, right, maybe, yes, Rogue or Mad Lions could have been an opportunity, right? But actually, if anything, they dicked around for a year too long. They should have gone for him last year. They shouldn't have tried the rookie angle on that one. You can't have all the rookies in every position. So to me, he was at the position in his career where it was like, you know what? If Fnatic and G2 come, maybe I'll stay. But I tell you what, if it isn't Fnatic and G2, and I'm going to again be stuck where I was with Origin 2 years ago, fuck it. I'll just go and join Team Liquid. I'll get the bag like a motherfucker. I'll play with Jensen, who's always good, great international player. What is this? We're maybe getting Santorin as my jungler, guy I respect as well. Core JJ, he's actually, by the way, better than many LEC players. Listen, that's why I don't mind it. I agree with you, Monty. Like, the angle is you want him to stay in Europe because it's the better chance.
Look, I don't think it's bad for him.
Teams, though. Of all the teams to join, that's actually a really cool opportunity, I think.
No, I don't think it's bad for him. Like, think about it from his perspective.
No, but I mean, even his teammates are pretty legit compared. Like, he's not doing when Soaz went to Immortals or Febiven went to Clutch. Like, sure. I could have told them that was a bad move because it's like, bro, look at your teammates. Like, you'd have to be like twice as good. If you're going to a team that's got stacked like that, though, you could still do something internationally. You could have a miracle run.
That's true. I think it's definitely a better opportunity than potentially what he could be getting in Europe. We don't know how the offseason could be shaken out or if the teams could be making moves that would create a roster that would result in Alphari having better chances. But objectively, it's also harder for him to win championships against Fnatic and G2 than it would be especially with Bjergsen out of the picture. Like, holy shit, like, who is going to upset this Team Liquid roster in North America right now?
Mate, the first thing I thought when I saw that was, dude, Alphari and Jensen are going to run the LCS.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, mate, I mean, listen, we haven't heard all the moves. Like, for example, maybe a certain G2 AD carry will be in mid lane in LCS. We don't know yet. But at the moment, with the teams that we have so far, they should just run that league, mate. Those solo laners are going to be straight money.
I think even if Perks did come to LCS, I don't think that it would be enough to beat that theoretical Liquid roster.
It'd be hard, sure. But it depends. I've heard some possible lineups. By the way, they're not all the ones that people have heard in public. That's one of the things that's very interesting if you're in the industry in esports. Everyone at the moment's wigging out over this certain guy on Twitter who's doing all these crazy rumors. Here's how we know when he's full of shit. Because he gives the rumors that, like, only the idiots in the industry say, like, not even the legit rumor. Like, he'll give a rumor like, this is spicy. And it's like, bro, that's like the least spicy of the four. What are you talking about? Like, you missed the... So that's how you always know when they're not actually, like, hooked into the scene. Because it's not even that that's news to you. It's like, it's news to me that you think that's the news. You know what I mean? Like, that's the least interesting one.
Yeah, there's usually a lot more wild shit going on.
Like, what people always say is this. It's true as well. If you think it's crazy when Caps joins fucking G2 and then goes to, and then Perks swaps to the bot lane, or someone does, like, or whatever, some other player goes to another team, like Selfmade goes to Fnatic, wow, those are the least crazy of some of the off-season. Every off-season, there's 3 or 4 where they're like, really? Like, just alien level moves. Like, stuff like
Chovy to EG. That was pretty crazy.
Some of them, sadly, the more spicy ones never happen, guys, unfortunately. They really are the ones where it's like you're saying, like, Chovy goes, actually, I won't come last minute, you know, like ridiculous ones like that.
Chovy to EG would have been crazy, for sure.
That would have been. I mean, poor guy. I wouldn't want to see that guy's career.
I mean, EG,
I'd like to have seen LS analyze the games. I can't lie. We'd have had some straight fire YouTube content.
EG probably is one of the teams that I would assume it would be like out there trying to get Perks for sure, knowing what they're doing. But for my own sanity, I really don't want to watch a Perks Hooney game. I can't.
I don't know. I mean, like,
no.
By the way, though, Monty, the one angle you've got to appreciate, though, is what I love about the off-season. I said this on Twitter, is when the fans, listen, Bwipo knows some of them are his fans, so I'll use TSM for this example, is when the fans who are entitled, like, they still think, by the way, it's the end of the world to come second in your region. Like, they don't understand. Go talk to CLG fans, boys. It can get way worse than this. You know, go talk to the people who used to be good, and then, you know, just making playoffs would be nice. So their fans are so entitled that in their mind, Monty, it's like Pat's fans. They don't understand. Like, you had your time. You had more than your share. Like, if anything, it's so unlikely you're, like, It's not. Here's the thing. You think TSM should be the best. Nobody else in the league does. So as a result, guess what? Like, when you hear a rumor, which is fake, because there was a fake one like this, if you actually believe for one solitary second that the Shy and Rookie were going to go to TSM, listen, I've got magic beans, a bridge over Brooklyn. I've got all the shit to sell you, mate. I'm like the guy with the trench coat and all the shit inside there. Like, you don't believe anything. Like, that is insane. Because in what universe? Even the money. They live in China, motherfucker. They don't even need the money. You think they're coming to TSM because they're like, I like Reginald. Like, do they? How delusional are you? So, mate, that was delicious watching that. Oh, so fucking good. I almost wanted to stalk it and be like, you know what? Fuck it. You guys should get Jackie Love as well. And they'd be like, well, I don't want Jackie Love after the World Squad. That's why it would have been amazing. But they're so, you can't parody TSM fans. They are actually so insane. Dude, there was a real comment someone posted on Twitter the other day from the TSM subreddit. It had 34 points. So that means after all those mental fans went in there, they didn't mass downvote it. And it just said, let's be real. It goes Faker, and then it's Bjergsen, and that's it. And I almost cried laughing when I saw this dude, because I was just like, dude, I need whatever drugs you're on. I need to experience that kind of an altered state.
The best part of this is that, you make the comparison between Patriots fans, but Patriots won like 6 Super Bowls with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, right? TSM won a bunch of titles, but every time they just go to Worlds and they just get owned. So it would be like the Patriots qualified for like an actual like the real football tournament, and they got completely wrecked every time that they went. So the delusion is even crazier when you think about that.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, we should probably wrap this one up.
No, we have one. One
okay,
last
what's
rumor.
The last one?
Sorry, I'm keeping Bwipo here forever. I want to talk about the LS to T1, because that is a rumor that has just come up. There were some leaks from Effort stream on T1 that, interesting, people will focus on the LS thing. The other leak was that Polt is going to be the head coach, which is actually really interesting. Wow. If in esports history, because he's a very famous StarCraft 2 player, and his English is actually pretty good.
He actually lived in America to get the visa when they did WCS, and also, famously, because he went to Seoul University, he's one of the only Koreans who, even when he was in Korea, you could actually speak to him in English, have a full conversation with him.
Yeah, so his English is very good. So that's people will overlook the fact that is actually incredibly important to T1's.
That's probably more important than the StarCraft experience, isn't it? Yeah.
And then also recently, after he did his military service, I think he got out, and I know he's been playing a bunch of TFT, which you guys might think of like, oh, whatever, TFT. But from talking to TFT casters that I know over the last year, people consider him the best TFT player in the world. Oh, okay. And not only that, but they were saying that because of a lot of the swaps and trades that you do in TFT, it was actually his StarCraft micro and his speed was actually really coming to play, which you wouldn't think about in TFT. But he could mechanically do things that, as silly as this sounds, that other TFT players were incapable of doing. In terms of rapidly switching out all of his characters and positioning. I don't know anything about TFT. I just talk to TFT people who knew, like Doa, for example, has been casting like every fucking TFT tournament this series. Like, oh, Polt's back. And I was like, oh, tell me about Polt. So that's how we kind of got there.
By the way, I'm just going to put this out there. I know at the moment we can't all travel, etc., but I'm just going to say this. There's obviously, in the case of this rumor, going to be one less caster in OGN.
Yep.
There's a guy called Doa is available. He's pretty fucking amazing. You know what? Every game I watch with him is hype as fuck. Maybe ask him. By the way, his wife's Korean. He would love to live in Korea. I'm telling you right now, that isn't speculation. He would love to go back to Korea.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that man.
I think that would be a great decision. But
as someone outside of the scene, as someone that enjoyed many years of his casting together with Pop, of course, I can approve of that decision.
But yeah, I think this is, I mean, I'm surprised. And the reason why I'm surprised that if this is true, that LS would take this job is because LS is currently in a very excellent place in terms
probably
of
has the
his
most
content.
leverage of any content creator in the world of esports right now. No joke.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's probably a true statement because
he's about to literally sort of in esports do a Joe Rogan. Like he could actually be like add like zeros to that fucking amount, and he could have anything he wanted the next few years.
And let me just put it this way: there is no way that T1 is paying him more money than he could be making.
Impossible. Literally impossible. As in, if he was getting paid by T1 an amount that made it worth giving up content creation, if it's only for money, he would be like one of the highest paid like League of Legends players in the entire world. Forget like coaches. So he's given this up essentially for competition. He wants to, I assume, prove he's the best coach. He wants to put it in action and put his money where his mouth. That's cool in a way.
It is cool in a way. I think that LS has been, and why I look at LS and I'm like, you've worked so hard to get to this point, because remember, I've known him for the entire time that I lived in Korea, because he came to Korea as a StarCraft Brood War player when he was a teenager, and then was there and transitioned into League of Legends and has been grinding away doing individual coaching teams, coaching Gravity, coaching BBQ, coaching all of this stuff, streaming, creating an exceptional amount of content. He's always done this, and he finally got his break in the last year, and he's been able to, I think the meta and League of Legends shifted into his area of expertise, which was very helpful for him, but he also has an incredible work ethic, and he really capitalized on this. I think he was very smart. I mean, this is what I did basically in Korea, which is that I was casting LCK. So I had, I was able to comment on those games, and then I was making content about all of the other regions, and I was doing Summoning Insight and doing these shows. So it wasn't just that I was commenting on one region. You can comment on all regions. You have to work your fucking ass off and watch you have to basically work 14 hours a day, which is what I did at the time. And because you have to keep up with all of these regions and all these time zones and then put out relevant content that's interesting to people. So I'm very familiar with the cycle that he's currently in, because I did it myself, except I actually casted all of the games in Korea, which he later did via co-streaming, and co-streaming wasn't an option, and won't get into it at the time, but I was doing VOD reviews. And if you work that hard to get this, it's very interesting to me that he would choose to make the competitive decision rather than continuing with that thing, because no matter what, he's going to lose momentum, and momentum is everything in terms of content creation. Any content creator or streamer will tell you, you just have to keep up the cycle because of the way that the algorithms work, because the way that the people's attention spans work, sponsors, everything. So you do have to get into that rhythm, and breaking that rhythm, even to do something as cool as coaching T1, it can be hard or even impossible to get back to the place you currently were.
Right. Obviously, people know before he was a player. Bwipo has a relationship with LS. He's not just a player that happened. So give us your thoughts on it. What do you think of this move? If it happens, obviously we speculate at this point.
Again, the only way he'd be able to make up for the difference that he would lose is, in my opinion, if he wins Worlds with Faker. If he's the guy that brings Faker to another trophy, then he's
I'm not sure even that does it.
Esports big bang. I mean, I think it would. That would be an esports big bang if he rides off that train. If it's a 1-year contract, no NDAs, he can share what he wants. That's as free as it gets, And again, at that point, maybe he can negotiate that, right? Have a 1-year deal with no NDAs. He can share what he likes about what happened behind the scenes. That type of content can propel him back into where he is right now. But ultimately, I think that the main reason why I think he would do it is because from what I've seen on social media, he doesn't seem very happy. Right?
Seems worn down to me.
Yeah, he's worn down. He's having
to be fair, he's never been happy.
I mean, he's found a way to deal with it, and I feel bad for him. And honestly, as someone that has been relatively close to him in the past, I don't feel like I'm doing a great job of supporting the situation he's in. I think I could do a much better job of hearing him out in that idea. I'm sure he has other people too, but this is actually something that I feel like I could do a better job of just talking to him, because I think he does a really good job of being himself.
I agree.
He brings his own value to the esports ecosystem, and I think that if he's willing to go to a team and bring that full time, that would be invaluable to any team that's willing to be around, to build around that, right? If Team 1 brings that in, I don't think it's something that you can spice your roster up with. Bringing LS into your coaching staff is not something that's let's spice it up. It's you're bringing the whole stew,
yeah.
Everyone's
out. I think what makes this a more encouraging move to me is the existence of Polt, because Polt is the guy who has experienced both kind of American and Korean cultures. And LS is also that guy, but the reverse direction, right? And so I think that Polt is listed as head coach, and what that means in Korea is more like team manager, right? It's sort of overseeing
the culture, all that
set
stuff,
the culture, personal interactions. Polt doesn't Polt's very smart. Polt's extremely intelligent. We know that from the games that he's played and just anybody who's talked to him, basically. But he's not an expert at League of Legends, right? He can understand the concepts, but LS is really being brought in as that strategic guy. But I think that having somebody above LS who is is fluent in both languages and who is very experienced in both cultures is actually like a really key piece of this to kind of bridge between them. And I think that's a very savvy move by T1.
I mean, if they can
take on this. Oh, go on, Bwipo, finish up, mate.
Well, if they can get Polt and LS to agree on how to do it, then I think that could be a very scary team. Like, again, a lot of the concepts that LS brings are reasonable. Like, they are true.
Yeah, of course.
The problem is you have to go through the whole coaching. Like, you have to go through the whole coaching.
You have to commit to it all. Yes.
From start to finish, where you've got 5 players that can all execute what the game plan that is possible, right? That's the thing. Like, he is from what I've seen from his content, a lot of the things he stands for is like a lot of people need the jungler when they shouldn't even be needing the jungler at all. So you need to coach 4 individual players, everyone but your jungler basically, to learn how to play every single matchup in all those ways and all, like, never needing help. And then on top of that, you also need to coach your jungler on how to play that specific style. And then on top of that, you need to convince them how to play the draft. Like, you need to teach them how to play the draft, convince them that the draft is good. And again, it's all possible. I can stand behind all of it. If I were to be on that team, I would be happy to experience that 100%. But the thing is if 1 or 2, especially 2 players start cracking, your whole team is going to shit.
And that's why I wonder a little bit, because if I think about teams that would be potentially more malleable, right? Like Damwon when they were younger, or Griffin, these kind of players, these kind of teams that have up and coming players, I think it's a lot easier to do that. I wonder if LS is going to be able to convince Faker to buy into his system, because that's the guy that's always going to be the hardest, because he's had the most success of any player ever. He's considered the greatest of all time. So to have him bought in is going to be a challenge for sure. That's what I'm worried about.
I've got takes on some of this. So first of all, I think I'm coming at it from a totally different perspective to everyone, because the only aspect I'm sad about that LS is going to leave is that I actually just think it's sad that we've lost like a super unique thinker. Like, the concept we won't have now for next year if he goes is sad. I think it's a tragedy, because one of the best things about LS, it reminded me of what I try to do in esports, is whether you think my take is good or interesting or not doesn't actually matter, because you can still appreciate the second order effect of what it has on the guest I have on the show, or what someone says in response to me, or someone corrects me and says this is the other way, or I disagree completely. Like, basically the ripple effect we can have is bigger than some people who just make a good point. You either accept it, you don't, you move on. Like, I think LS, in that sense, his school of thinking, whether you like it or not, has had an enormous impact on everyone else in League of Legends. Like, how the other casters talk, how they do the streams, Forge reviews, what terms they use. Dude, almost everyone took that Sinner saying, like, fucking Angle, they're losing the shopkeeper. Dude, he invented these concepts. Like, there was a principle like that before, but there's another thing I've always tried to do. You don't, you can say something ineloquently and it'll make sense. But if you can make it witty and pithy and memorable, then it's fucking sick. That's why people will remember it, and it'll translate out, it'll diffuse out to a guy that doesn't really get the concept, but he gets vaguely what it means. He gets the top of the iceberg, as it were. Like, he sort of knows what a Cinecomp is, but he really... So here's the problem. I think selfishly, I don't want to lose that. But if I think of LS, this is why I don't think of it from the perspective Monty did there, of like his career, where it's going. It's because I think, I'm trying to imagine I'm LS, and I think of the life he lived, right?
Yeah.
Where when he went to Korea...
It makes total sense why he would make this decision.
Yeah. When he went to Korea, when he was something mental, like 16 years old, essentially half running away from his problems in America, that he just didn't fit in, his life was terrible, family problems. When he went to Korea, and for the first few months, he was staying in those Goshi hotels where you pay, like, you know, fucking $50 a night for a room, and then he would take the rest of the money he had and go and buy one kimbap, and he had to make it last the whole day. Right? If you did that, and then you somehow hustled your way into a house of a team that, you know what, ended up being Imp and all these fucking players.
Well, before that, he was playing Brood War, so he knows T1 from the Brood War days, right? So he's the one who's idolizing the old StarCraft teams as well. This is the dream for him.
This is the point, is if you were in that position, you're not necessarily going to think, but at the moment I'm making all this and my career's going this way, you're going to go, wait a minute. LS that's inside me, who was a 16-year-old boy.
Yes, exactly.
Dude, the greatest organization in the history of Korean esports, with arguably the most transcendent figure ever, want me to come and coach them. I'd drop everything. I'd do it tomorrow. Because here's the thing. What you don't ever want to do, it's like I said in that Carlos's choice thing about caps and perks. The real problem in those scenarios, right, of these players is you don't want to be the guy who does the smart move today, but spends the rest of your life like, fuck, what if I could have had perks? I could have had perks. What if? So here's the thing. He has to do it. He has to do it if it's a real rumor, because he can't go the rest of his life and go, like me when I tell that story about how I could have coached Fnatic. Everyone just goes, who gives a fuck? It's like, yeah, because I didn't do it. It's just a fucking shit story in a bar that you go and you dine out on one story. Tell you what, if I'd have done it, win or lose, that would have been one of the most epic stories of all time. I'll tell you now, they definitely wouldn't have won all those championships and gone top 4 worlds. Like, I'll tell you that myself. I'm not saying what if, what could I have done? Like, just what if I would have liked to see what would have happened, you know?
That's why I understand it from his perspective, like why you would make this decision, because you have to consider the fact that this goes before League of Legends into he's very familiar with StarCraft.
Aspirational, isn't it?
Yeah, he's the one who's thinking about, man, this was Boxer's team and the legendary T1 of Brood War, and I was a StarCraft kid who came out here because I loved these legacy teams, and then I got into League of Legends, and then I've been working my way up. Yeah, I get emotionally why he's doing it.
Sorry, I've got one last thing to say. People don't know, because this actually does relate to that Fnatic example I just gave. Because what people don't know is, I've told people this story before. I never really thought I was going to do it. So what I sort of did is I gave myself 2 weeks where in my brain, I told myself I was going to do it. So I let myself enjoy the feeling of it. What would I start doing? And I even was talking all the management, here's the players, we'll talk about who's available, where the contracts are. And if we were to sign them, what would the house situation be? I was reveling in sort of the imagination of it, right? But then when I got to the end of the 2 weeks, they saved me inadvertently. Because what happened was, I was telling myself the same thing. I know this isn't the right route for me. I loved doing content on. At the time, I was popping off in CSGO, I was getting all. So I was like, this just doesn't make any sense on all the real aspects. And it's also not my ultimate burning desire. But then the big thing that helped me was they also, because it was just the off season, at the time they hadn't made Origin yet, so it wasn't certain expecting. So as we're going, and Yellow Star maybe stayed or he didn't. So here's the key thing that did it. When I found out behind the scenes, and this tells you a lot about how esports worked back then and now, I found out weeks before they did. So I wasn't expecting are definitely leaving. They're going to do Origin. Fnatic was going, no, they might stay. We're talking to them still. And I was like, you just don't know how players talk, bro, and you're in the org. And the same, they were like, Reckless is gone, Yellow Star maybe go. If they'd have actually told, if I'd have known for sure Soaz was staying, I actually might have fucked myself into doing it, because that was one of the only players in League of Legends I always thought was an enigma, that if you could coach the right way, could do so much in the game. And so when I knew he was gone, and then I've told people the story before, when I was like, okay, so who's replacing him? And they were like, there's this guy called Hootie who plays on the 3rd team of Samsung that we played in Grey. I was like, you know what, mate? That sounds cool and all that, but that ain't my origin story. You take all those fucking rookies and random and game over from fucking OGN. You can have them. You can take those. Someone else can manage that team. So they made the decision for me, thankfully. I never had to do it. Because, by the way, also, imagine Soaz's career if I had to coach him for 1 year. This and that could have changed a lot of things for everyone, and not necessarily in the better.
One experience I had was actually after 2018. I had a 1-year contract and it was up, and I actually had to think about that because I was obviously offered. Have
you got a sexy one?
Well, sorry?
TSM? Did TSM Cloud9 offer you? Who offered you? Come on.
No, it was 100 Thieves.
Okay.
They put 2.4 million for a 3-year deal in front of my nose.
All right. Wow. By the way, remember, Bwipo the year before this year was playing in fucking Turkey, Monty. And someone came to 2 years before. Someone came to him and goes, you know what? You've had one nice year as a rookie. And by the way, maybe Soaz stays, $2.4 million sound good? How quickly did you turn it down? That's what I want to know. Did you have showers? Were you just thinking about $2.4 million? What was going on?
On the same day, I knew I wasn't going to take it. Because how could I? That's the story, right? We went from Europe never making it anywhere past semifinals, which was once, to world finals, and I was a part of that, right? So how could I accept an offer that was that? And that was before negotiation, so you can imagine, right?
They've driven it down,
I could have driven it up. That's
okay, true.
I could have driven it up. That's what my agent was telling me, that we could have driven it up to 900 a year. So you have to imagine that amount of money. I was like, Jesus Christ, can I even say no? Right? Obviously, I have the Hoonie memes now. Maybe I would have been that guy.
You can't blame people for setting themselves up for the rest of their lives.
But that's what I mean. And I was just like, do I compare that to Fnatic, which I won't even come close to half of that, right? You have to imagine, Jesus, the amount of money that they were willing to throw at me was just insane. But I couldn't say no. How could I, as the rookie that came onto Fnatic and made World Finals, which, again, ultimately, I wasn't really the reason why we made it that far. Sure, I was a part of it, but ultimately it was Caps, Reckless, and Broxer, right? That's like in Hillesang. That was the reason why we made it so far. And then I would step off to go cash out. Like, there was no way I was going to do that. I didn't have.
There we go.
I really didn't have a choice.
There is chapter 1 million in the book of why Fnatic fans don't deserve Bwipo. There you go. I said it. End the episode.
That's right. I see what you've done. You've actually just made it so Fnatic fans can't ever criticize you again.
No. I mean, I respect that would be nice, but again, coming back to the criticism point we started with, just keep doing it. Like, if you have a useful criticism for me, honestly, like, I implore people, if you're on Reddit, actually go out of your way to write a 30-minute essay and actually impress me. You know, maybe I'll get a job. Like, it's that easy, honestly. Like, it's that easy to get a job as a coaching staff in the current ecosystem. It's like, just write out a whole essay, prove to the world that you've got a brain, and there's a good chance you get a job offer. I'm not even lying.
That's true. That is actually true about the esports industry. People think it's hard to get into, but you just have to be not an idiot. That's
exactly
the bar is very low. So you have any final thoughts, Bwipo, on the LS possible move to coaching T1? It's really an interesting take. I mean, it's certainly not something that you would see coming for sure. I
don't think it would work purely because Faker is exactly the type of player that, like I mentioned with the Master, right? He'll just decide, like, you know, why am I playing Orianna and scaling till minute 50 if I can just make fun of this guy playing Akali real quick, you know? Like, that mentality is something you can get trapped in really fast, and LS would have to convince people that this is the 99.99 win percentage chance, and even if you don't like it, you gotta live it, you gotta breathe it, you gotta be it. And if you can beat that into your players, LS would be a great coach. I just don't believe that there's any team in the world that doesn't have the ego on the players that will allow that to be beaten into their skin. Like, I just don't believe it. Like, every single player will, like, you know, they'll go sneak off and play Kiana and soloQ.
I think
secretly.
No, I agree with you. And I think that's
what's going off. What are you doing in that room? Nothing, Mom. Just studying the fucking theory you gave us. Oh, I love scaling.
I think that's true. Is like, if you want people to play the perfect version of a game, right? You have to be the pro whisperer, that guy who can convince them that this is in their best interest. You have to feed them the fucking broccoli and tell them that they're gonna like it, right? So it's really hard to do. It's really hard to do because most coaches realize that at the end of the day, their job is trying to minimize the insanity of their players. That is like their number one job, is to try and cover up all of their various weaknesses because they refuse to fix their weaknesses themselves.
It would be very interesting, to say the least. That would be incredible. And I actually think that if that works, that would be one of the scariest teams in the world to play against. Because if you, like, it's a team that is actually trying to achieve an inevitability. That's what their goal is from the get-go. You're playing the game and you will feel it. Like, the whole brand LS is built up will actually put more pressure on you as the opposing team, because that's exactly what this guy wants to do.
I'll give you the one last angle on this no one's thought of. If somehow it all works, because obviously they can get amazing players, say they win World. I'm being ridiculous. I'm making the most extreme. But you ready? That's going to be the first real esports Hollywood movie. I guarantee you. Book it right now. The story of LS's life and how he came from where he came from, cheater in fucking StarCraft, to what he did. Like, that is the first esports Hollywood movie, because they don't have to change the script. If anything, they have to pare it down a bit and make it fucking plausible. Like,
true. You're goddamn right.
And remove the mask so it's easier for the actor, so you can, like, see their facial expressions. You know, they're gonna have to make some modifications to the costuming, I think.
That too.
And obviously, it goes without saying Leonardo DiCaprio's playing LS. We all know it. It's just the way it's going to be.
Wow.
And he's winning his second Oscar because everyone's going to go, fuck, you made us care about this shit esports thing. What even is that? You must be an amazing actor. Then he wins his second Oscar. Brilliant. There you go.
Well, I look forward to executive producing that movie or advising on it. That as somebody who was there for most of it. All right. I think that's going to be good for us. We've been going a good long time. Thank you, Bwipo, for your patience. I don't know when we're going to run another SI. We might do some off-season content if there's some spicy moves. But as of right now, there aren't plans to run a show next week unless something, you know, very interesting happens, which, given some of these roster announcements, might happen sooner rather than later. But Thorin and I are also in Flashpoint starting a week from tomorrow. So watch Flashpoint. That's what you should be doing with your League of Legends offseason. I know Bwipo is going to watch Flashpoint. He's a big Counter-Strike fan.
I actually used to watch it a little bit. I was too bad at the game. I couldn't.
It's okay. Here's your time. See, you know, we do things like let players curse and do whatever the fuck we want on that broadcast. So it's kind of like Summoning Insight, where you can, you know, if you were a Flashpoint player, Bwipo, you could say whatever the fuck.
You'd be loving it, mate. Yeah. I'll tell you one joke I didn't make. Fuck, I just realized it earlier. What I was going to do was, I'll do it very quickly. I was going to do a whole thing where I was talking about, you know, I was setting it up like, and he's coaching T1 and he's got Faker there and he's in the dressing room and it's the night before OGN finals. And he's coming up with his drafts and he knows exactly how he's going to beat Damwon Gaming. And he's there and it's game 5 and they're ready. And the team looks to him and they say, "What do we do, coach? What do we play?" Faker says, "I'm willing to humble myself. What do I do?" And he just turns to him and he says, "Oh, sorry, it wasn't Damwon. They're playing against DRX." And he goes, "Game's over. It's Chovy, bro." He just walks out and then they lose the series. And actually, that's how the whole story ends. Because no one can beat Chovy. Don't even try. Like, listen, don't even pick good champions because you shouldn't be him. He deserves this. And then he just walks out. It's really anticlimactic ending. It's kind of like Game of Thrones or some shit. You know? I was coming up with that, but I forgot it when he was talking.
It's all right. It was so funny.
You can clip that. You can clip that part. Yeah, there you go.
It was pretty good.
There we go.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. We'll see you at some point in the future. Follow the channel. If it goes live, it's going to be this show. We'll announce stuff on Twitter. Thanks, Bwipo, for hanging out with us after Worlds is over. Enjoy your off season.
Likewise.
All right. Catch you guys later.